I believe that things will get better. And I think sometimes, maybe, for things to get better, things to need to get really bad. Maybe the most terrible things create an urgency for things to get better. So I hope that in this terrible, horrendous situation that we have been in since October the 7th, that will create urgency for things to get better. And I believe the good will overcome the evil. And the majority of the people are good. And we have to make sure that the majority overcomes the minority of evil people so that we can all enjoy and live peaceful and secure and good lives.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. You'll find more in-depth conversations on the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with former US President Joe Biden, tennis great Martina Navratilova, and British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. Until the next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. CBC News is next.
Magandang umaga, good morning, Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Hello to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page as well. Let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a state of emergency covers the province as wildfires still threaten communities in the north. Thousands of people from Garden Hill First Nation are being flown out of that community. Dino Harper arrived in Winnipeg yesterday and says he feels bad for everyone. We're going to hear more voices from Garden Hill. The province estimates more than 4,000 people are going to have to leave that community. Canada's energy regulator has approved liquefied natural gas exports through Hudson Bay. But it won't happen anytime soon. Premier Rob Canoe says his government has not signed on, adding there is still homework to be done. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. There are essentially air quality warnings in place, smoke warnings in place for much of our listening region today because of wildfire smoke. So if you're in Winnipeg, you might notice the smell. Environment and Climate Change Canada reminding folks that smoke can be dangerous to your health. So if you have heart or lung issues, you're asked to avoid the outside and really just listen to your body. And if you're not feeling well, make sure you speak to your medical professional. You heard Heather talk about some of those wildfire evacuees. We will also hear from Garden Hill evacuees who have arrived in Winnipeg yesterday. More than 4,000 expected to leave the fly-in community because of wildfires. In our 7 o'clock half hour, sardines. Well, it might be a food not usually in your meal rotation, but one Winnipeg organization is throwing this fish its own festival this weekend, starting tonight. I will learn more coming up at 7:40. And in our last half hour, the CBC's Bartley Kivas joins us to talk about the financial health of the Winnipeg Folk Festival, which is underway. Stay tuned for those stories and more coming up next here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, everywhere on the CBC Listen app, and shortly on CBC Television. Stay tuned. World Report is next.
Today on Q.
The author Emma Donoghue grew up in Ireland without much affection for her own country's traditional music. But when she left Ireland, whenever she heard it, she almost broke down. That music is now the score of her own new musical about immigration. Emma Donoghue will be here to tell you all about it.
So I knew that these songs would have really strong bones and I could use them as storytelling units.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland and on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. We begin with a new threat to Canada from U.S. President Donald Trump, a 35% tariff on all Canadian goods on top of the sector-specific tariffs some industries are already dealing with. Trump made the threat in a letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney posted on social media. CBC's Chris Glover has more from Washington.
It is not a long letter, but certainly it is a significant one. So let's dig into it this morning. Trump starts by saying it's a great honor to send it, and it demonstrates the strength, Trump says, of the trading relationship between our two countries. And then, of course, comes that bombshell. Trump says starting August 1st, the U.S. will charge a 35% tariff on Canadian products going into the United States. And that would be separate from sector-specific tariffs on things like steel and autos. And again, Trump mentioned fentanyl right off the bat and Canada's failure, he said, to stop the flow of the drug as the reason for these tariffs, but also said that other financial issues, including Canada's protection of things like the dairy industry, made the trading situation unsustainable. This all comes as trade negotiations between the U.S. and many countries were obviously ongoing, but Trump not happy, obviously, with the progress with Canada. And he laced that letter to Carney with a threat saying if Canada raises its tariffs in response, whatever number Canada chooses, that number would be added onto the 35% charge that he is announcing last night. Chris Glover, CBC News, Washington.
Canadian industries and businesses, meantime, are working to calculate the potential impact of these tariffs. Goldie Hyder is with the Business Council of Canada.
Our information from American sources is that it's only applicable to things that are not what's called CUSMA compliant, which is a Canadian version for USMCA. So that really would only capture about 6-7% of our economy. So don't panic, I guess, is part of the message. Stay focused and stay engaged.
Prime Minister Mark Carney also took to social media last night with his reaction to Trump's threat. He appears to be treating Trump's letter as a revised deadline for a U.S.-Canada trade deal, making it August 1st instead of July 21st. Carney says his government will continue to defend workers and businesses and has made vital progress in stopping what he calls the scourge of fentanyl. The United Nations Human Rights released new figures from Gaza this morning. It now says at least 798 people were killed while they were trying to receive food aid. This is since the end of May. The majority of those, 615 of the 798, were near Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's sites. That is the American organization backed by both the United States and Israeli government to deliver aid in the territory. Well, Donald Trump and Melania Trump will tour flood-ravaged parts of Texas today. The visit by the U.S. President and the First Lady comes as Texas officials face mounting questions about their response to the crisis. The flash flood killed more than 120 people. 170 others are still missing. Steve Futterman has more from Kerrville, Texas.
It was 1 week ago that the life of this small town and the surrounding areas changed forever. Today, Donald Trump will fly here to see the damage firsthand and meet with some of those impacted. It comes as more and more questions are being asked about whether faster actions might have prevented or reduced the scope of the disaster. This is audio from the early hours of July 4th. A firefighter asking a dispatcher if an alert, what he calls a code red, can be issued to the nearby town of Hunt.
Is there any way we can send a code red out to our Hunt residents asking them to find higher ground or stay home?
10-4 standby. We have to get that approved with our supervisor.
It took more than an hour before an alert was finally sent. As all this goes on, the arduous search for bodies continues. At this point, no one expects to find anyone alive. Captain Eric Craycraft is one of hundreds of first responders searching through endless piles of debris along the Guadalupe River.
It's just getting through these brush piles. I mean, I've been in some piles that are the size of school buses. They're big, they're massive, and they're everywhere.
Donald Trump, accompanied by his wife Melania, is set to arrive here just before noon. The president will be here for around 3 hours. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Kerrville, Texas.
Back here at home, New Democrats are on a path to rebuild their party after its worst ever election loss. And the search for a new NDP leader begins as early as Labor Day. The CBC's David Thurton has a preview of who may be interested in running.
I am definitely seriously considering, now that we know that there's enough time, to have a great, exciting family contest.
Avi Lewis comes from a political pedigree. His dad, Stephen Lewis, once the leader of the Ontario NDP. David Lewis, one of the founders of the modern NDP, was his grandfather. Like them, Avi wants to do his part to rebuild Canada's New Democrats.
There's been a lot of upset and internal angst, and some of it is spilled out publicly since the election, which is inevitable but unfortunate. And this, I think, is a real turning point where we can start coming together
Aside from Lewis, a sitting NDP MP, Heather McPherson, might also run.
Let's be honest, the last election was a wake-up call.
McPherson, in a recent social media video.
The NDP played it safe. We stayed on the sidelines while people were asking us for solutions. And as a result, we lost trust.
The complete list of leadership rules has not been finalized, but the party confirms what sources have told CBC News. It will run from September to March with an entrance fee of $100,000.
It would definitely limit the field in terms of who could run.
Libby Davies, a longtime BC NDP MP, lamenting the high financial bar.
Because they would obviously have to have that ability to raise that kind of money in a fairly short period of time.
The hefty fee might repel some, but it could propel the National Party back into better financial shape after a tough election. David Thornton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Police in Surrey, British Columbia are investigating after multiple gunshots were fired into a restaurant. The establishment was newly opened by Bollywood actor and comedian. Jessica Chung has more.
2 gunshots, a reload, then 8 more. Video posted online appears to show the moment a gun is fired into a cafe in Surrey, BC. Police say the shooting happened at a cafe owned by prominent Indian actor and comedian Kapil Sharma. Staff were still inside. Bullet holes pepper the storefront. No one was injured, and police say they've yet to determine a motive.
It's very brazen.
There are reports in Indian media that a Khalistani separatist leader has claimed responsibility for the shooting. Surrey Police Service Staff Sergeant Lindsay Houghton says investigators have not confirmed this.
There's nothing at this time that points it to being purely political or extortion related. We have to let the evidence guide the investigation.
Still, residents in the area are rattled.
This news is just very disappointing.
If these things happen, so it's very hard to live over here.
Police are asking anyone who saw or has dash cam footage of the incident to contact them. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Surrey.
And finally, for us here on World Report, a group of black men in the Halifax area is determined to tackle a growing crisis. Intimate partner violence has been declared an epidemic in the province, with high rates in black communities. The CBC's Elizabeth Chu was invited to join them from an open discussion about prevention in a place where they feel comfortable.
About 15 men are gathered for haircuts at a barbershop near Halifax. Before a conversation starts about stopping intimate partner violence in the Black and African Nova Scotian community. Barber Derek States offered up his space.
I feel like it's a great place for them to share their thoughts and how they feel. You look to go to a therapist, I could be your therapist.
Trained therapist, social worker Mario Roll organized the program.
We talk about how to do better, to work on your behavior, your attitudes, your emotions, to help foster a positive, healthy community.
Participants are opening up about how stress, beefs on social media, and the reality of their lives as black men can build up.
Your partner asks you a question, you're still loaded with that emotion from work, you just lash out on her.
For what you know now, what would you do?
It all starts with understanding that you cannot control what happens to you. You can only control yourself.
With tips on how to stay calm and support each other, the program wraps up.
Honestly, it's good every time I come here. It's always around something that's for the betterment of us.
I know I feel good about myself every time I leave this place, so.
The hope is to create lasting bonds among men to help break the cycle of domestic violence. Elizabeth Chu, CBC News, Lakeside, Nova Scotia.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 on a very smoky morning. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Coming up on the program, we'll hear from Garden Hill evacuees who have arrived in Winnipeg yesterday. More than 4,000 have been expected to leave the fly-in community because of wildfires. More on that here on the program. You're seeing photos of that if you're on CBC television and on our streaming platform, CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Also in this half hour, as more companies rethink remote work, questions are being asked and raised about productivity, leadership style, and the future of flexibility. More on that still to come. First, though, kids with type 1 diabetes are saying hi, Barbie, to a new doll featuring some special accessories. We'll hear from a local mom and fashion designer next here on Information Radio. We're going to head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk where it's very busy today. Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, and a second state of emergency now in effect this summer, second time this summer, covering the entire province as smoke covers much of the province as well from those wildfires. It's prompted a mass evacuation of Garden Hill First Nation. Chief Dino Flett flew into Garden Hill last night. He says as of last night, no structures had been lost. His biggest concern, he says, is people's safety. And as you mentioned, 4,000 people from Garden Hill are being forced to flee, many of them coming to Winnipeg. After a few difficult post-pandemic seasons, the Winnipeg Folk Festival is thriving again. No fewer than 13,000 paying fans are expected at Birds Hill Park every day this weekend. It's an achievement in a summer where some outdoor music festivals in Canada are scaling back or shutting down altogether. We'll take you to the Folk Fest coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Leif Larson is our studio director today, and Abby Adiemi has been following all of this. It's acrid. Is the word acrid?
How was the ride in? Let's start with your two-wheeler.
Yeah, I did scooter in, and I thought, boy, oh boy, this is a lot of smoke, isn't it?
At first, I stepped outside. I was thinking it was fog, and then I inhaled smoke, and I'm like, yes, this is more like a day where we're going to be dealing with smoke. And we have air quality warnings in place for most of the province this morning, as this smoke outside will be impacting a lot of regions, talking about the Red River, the Pembina Valley, the Interlake, the Parkland, up the way we're tracking it all the way into Flin Flon and Thompson. The only part of the province I don't see smoke this morning is actually Churchill, where it's cloudy. But every other part of the province is experiencing smoky conditions and health issues. If you have issues breathing, you need to reduce outside time. Winnipeg right now, 20 degrees. That smoke is outside. As we move through the day, expect this mostly cloudy conditions to stay with us. And by this afternoon, we will see a good chance of showers, and even some thunderstorms could pop up here and there. The smoke will continue to hang in the air, and it's going to make things feel a bit heavier as you get through the day. We'll see highs around 23 degrees, and that's similar conditions we're going to see in most parts of the southern regions this morning. Up north, we're seeing temperatures between 11 and 14 degrees, while down south, we're looking at 18 to 20 degrees. Winnipeg, we are at 20 right now, warming up to 23. It's not going to be as hot as yesterday. And talking about traffic, also take care if you're going to be making those transitions from one bus to another. Remember, the smoke will be impacting you, so take it out there. If you see anything in traffic, let us know. 788-3093.
Coming up to 15 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. A brand new doll is making waves for diabetes awareness. Announced earlier this week, and you heard about it on your CBC Winnipeg News, Mattel introduced the first ever Barbie with type 1 diabetes. Mattel saying the addition to the line enables more children to see themselves reflected in Barbie and foster a greater sense of inclusion and empathy.
So she is wearing a continuous glucose monitor on her arm, an insulin pump on her waist, and she even carries a T1D supply bag, just like so many kids do every day.
And I noticed that she also has the blue dot that represents diabetes awareness.
So glad you noticed that.
That's from Mattel's Barbie account on TikTok. The new doll has one Manitoba family very excited. Heidi Boyacek is the mother of 11-year-old Haley, who lives with type 1 diabetes. They both spoke with the CBC's Chloe Friesen on Up to Speed yesterday.
So Heidi, I'm going to start with you. When did you first hear about this new Barbie doll?
I heard, I want to believe, minutes after it spread online. I received about 15 text messages, and every news feed that I opened in my phone had somebody tagging Haley or myself, which was so heartwarming to see that when people saw this doll, they instantly thought of my girl.
Haley, what did you think when you saw this new Barbie?
I was so happy and at the same time so surprised. I'm happy to have a doll to be similar like me, and it kind of shows like you shouldn't be afraid of showing all your gadgets. Like you should be proud of showing them.
I love that you call them your gadgets. That's so cool. Haley, do you play with Barbies? Do you have Barbies?
Yes, I actually have a lot of Barbies. Me and my sister play a lot.
Okay, so this new Barbie, you're going to add it to your collection.
Of course.
Okay, you said you were surprised. Why were you surprised?
Because before I really didn't think like there was a couple like American Girl things of like pumps and stuff that I had before, but I didn't think of Barbie, but of Barbie having the same gadgets. But I'm also like so happy because I played with Barbies a lot.
What do you think it'll mean to you to hold a Barbie with a glucose monitor and an insulin pump? What do you think that moment's going to be like?
I'm going to feel proud because it's going to make me think like to have this doll that's so cool, and then like it kind of shows us like cool.
And I know you and your mom both do a lot of education, and you kind of help your friends and your community understand. Do you think this will be a helpful tool in this? Do you think you're going to show your friends?
Yeah, of course I am, right away.
Heidi, I mentioned here you work really hard to educate Haley's peers and the community around type 1 diabetes. How do you think something like a Barbie might assist in that awareness?
This is absolutely incredible for helping bring awareness, and like the intro you had played said, they added every extra touch possible. They've got the color blue represents diabetes, the blue circle representing. And for us, it's just, like Haley said, it's really empowering because I've always tried to encourage her to be brave and show off her gizmos and gadgets. It's nothing to hide. And now when other kids see a Barbie with these on too, it can only make it seem that much more cool and not something they need to be ashamed of. I mean, diabetes is something we carry with us every minute of the day, and it's often an invisible disease. But this Barbie doll is going to help so many kids feel like they can share it, and they don't have to. It doesn't have to be something that's so invisible for them.
What is your kind of journey to finding representation for Haley, for finding either people or toys that look like her?
It's been quite a journey. We're small town Manitobans, so where Haley goes to school, she is the only kid with diabetes. So it's been really important to us to be able to educate and bring awareness. There's a lot of misconceptions with diabetes, and I think this doll is going to help with that as well. I mean, Barbie is someone that most people look up to and think is pretty rad. So I think she can only help us in our journeys. And I think once we can get our hands on one of these, it might be an awesome tool to bring with us when we do awareness and speaking gigs and things like that.
How hard do you think it's going to be to get one of these Barbies? I know you're in rural Manitoba, so have you already made the online orders or what's the plan?
As far as I can tell, us Canadians can't get our hands on her till about August. Okay. And it says Toys R Us or Amazon. But I may have a few tricks up my sleeve with some connections we've made in the diabetes world. So I'm hoping we can get one to Haley.
Haley, is one of these Barbies going to be enough, or how many are you going to need here?
I'm probably going to need at least 2 because my sister and me were talking about it this morning, actually. She's saying how she needs one so then we can both have matching Barbies and play together.
Oh, I love that idea.
Every girl with diabetes needs a friend, right?
Exactly. Heidi, how has summer been for your family? What sort of things have you been up to, and what do you have to kind of keep in mind or do differently when you have a kid with type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, summer means our usual routine goes out the window, and diabetes really does need a routine. Even though you can do the same thing 2 days in a row, you won't get the same blood sugar. But when you throw summer holidays in the mix, there are a lot more challenges that, again, are invisible. Things like going to the pool where we have to take the insulin pump off and we don't have those continuous glucose updates on the phone. It means sometimes Haley has to jump out of the water and prick her finger to test her sugars. The heat of the day can really affect the blood sugar. So a day like today, we're going to have to pack that bag, just like that Barbie's blue purse, with a few extra packs of sugar and insulin and supplies. But it's nothing we can't handle. We're pretty seasoned by now. Hey, Haley?
Yeah.
Well, when you get your hands on this new Barbie, I'm gonna need a photo. I want to see you and your Barbie, and I hope you guys have a fantastic summer.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Heidi Boychek is the mother of 11-year-old Haley, who lives with type 1 diabetes. They were both speaking to the CBC's Chloe Friesen.
Personally, from CBC Podcasts, allows you to get lost in someone else's life. From a mysterious childhood spent on the run to a courageous escape from domestic violence, each season of Personally invites you to explore the human experience in all its complexity, one story or season at a time. This is what it sounds like to be human. Find Personally on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
21 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 97.9 FM in Brandon, in Thompson, 100.9 FM. I'm Faith Fundal. Since the pandemic, working from home has become a way of life for many Canadians. But now that trend is starting to shift. RBC, BMO, Scotiabank, 3 of Canada's biggest banks are asking employees to return to the office at least 4 days a week this September. Some say it's about collaboration and company culture. Others think it's a step backwards. Claire Kumar is an inclusive workplace strategist, joining us to talk about what's driving the return and whether age and mindset might be part of the equation here. Claire is in Toronto. And Claire, I think you are in your home office right now joining us.
You bet. You think you can find this pink wall in an office? Pretty hard pressed.
It'd be hard to convince someone, the fancy bosses, as I like to say, to do that kind of thing. Okay, I mean, let's talk about this because there has been a shift since the pandemic. Remote work becoming the norm for many. I'm surprised that this is still a question that still comes up. But what's your sense of whether returning to the office full time is necessary or productive in the first place?
I love the question. And I think first place to start is to challenge the perception that, yes, there was a drop in the number of people working from home from the pandemic through to 2023. But since then, as a paper just released last week by Nick Bloom and his colleagues at Stanford, and it's called The Global Persistence of Work from Home, the work from home rates have stabilized. So I'm very curious to see what effect the bank mandates will have, especially in light of knowing that they also have inclusion and diversity and equity initiatives still. And in just playing off your last story, talking about invisible challenges, we know that the ability to be more inclusive gets more people working. So I'm really curious about that. One interesting thing in the paper that I noted is Canada is leading the way in terms of numbers of days on average that are worked remotely, and that's 1.9 days. It varies across the world, but this study is global. About 16,000 people, college graduate workforce studied, and it's flat. It's not shifting. So the mandates are really not effective. We've had mandates, but they haven't been really effective in lifting the percentage of people actually going back to the office. So I think this may be a lot of noise. I'm curious if organizations are trying to use their leverage now as the economy shifts slightly to be more autocratic and commanding and controlling. I don't think it's going to be effective. And in fact, they may see some negative consequences.
I mean, it's interesting because before the pandemic, I recall the conversations from corporations saying there's no way we would agree to a work from home because, and some of the reasons they've used have been workplace safety issues. So, for example, depending on which province you're in, the employer is required to know what your workplace is and know all the hazards, all those things. And the lawyers for corporations would say that's going to cost too much to mitigate all of that risk. And then now here we are. And then we've shown that it's possible. Are these... I'm going to frame myself properly here. Are these excuses that we're hearing about, or are these real things now?
Well, just to add to your point about personal security, data security was a big reason too. There's like we can't have you accessing the sensitive information, but we've proven through that not only can we do those things, we've proven to work effectively, and now people have a greater sense of how they're productive. I have a line of t-shirts I call inclusivities.
Right.
And one of the t-shirts says productivity is personal. After coaching hundreds, thousands of people over 20 years on how to perform better, I'm looking now at the conversation about how do we get everyone to perform and invite more people to the table. So I do think there are real concerns leaders have, but I think it might be stemmed in something called false consensus effect, which is, gee, I work better in the office, so I think you should work better in the office too. And this is a common and pervasive human bias, but it's not true. So I think what I'd like to invite leaders to do is hold on to their curiosity and really work to understand that productivity is personal, nuance is necessary, and flexibility is inclusivity. So if we want to have access to a broader talent pool, if we want to keep that talent happy and engaged, the science and the studies will show you that the great predominant appetite is for a hybrid arrangement and significant time not in the office space. So I created a program, I call it Total Teamwork, and it's a way to simplify this complexity and really get to a team-based approach to understand each other first, and then through compassion-infused compromise, co-create that synchronous communication. We benefit from getting together. There's no question, but mandates are not the way to go about it.
How much harder is it? Because there is also in workplace culture the idea of, well, I don't think you're doing this, and then it kind of propagates, right? How much harder is it when you have that kind of work culture, and you sort of try to rein that in? Because I mean, people will always have their own version, their own perspective of how effective someone else is.
Yeah, I think trust is what we're getting at here. And do we trust our employees? And I think that's part of aligning people's personal ambitions to the work that they're doing and making sure it's fulfilling and engaging. And if we lose that, then perhaps, yes, you're going to have people dialing it in. And so I think there's a leadership opportunity, which is more about making sure the work is a good fit for an individual and that they're motivated and engaged. I do not think pressure and mandates is the way to do that.
Claire, before you go, I want to ask you, because you work with a lot of leaders. What have you found that has been effective in how leaders can address some of the slowdowns and communication barriers that happen when you have a team that is hybrid, both at home and in the office?
Yeah, you have to be more thoughtful and intentional around your communication. One of my podcast episodes just dropped, and it's all about the importance of the check-in. And a lot of times I've seen those kinds of regular communications get deprioritized and dropped in favor of a pressing issue. But that's the nurturing of the relationships that we need to build that trust, understand what's going on, and then really have strong work relationships. So having a plan around how you're communicating with your employees and really doing that check-in. The podcast is Happy Space. If anybody wants to check out that episode, it's very useful. And there's a simple process to make sure those check-ins are effective.
Claire, thank you so much for making time to have this conversation, and do take good care.
Thank you so much.
That is Claire Kumar, an inclusive workplace strategist, and she also has a podcast called Happy Space Podcast. You can find it wherever you get your pods. Lots to come here on the program on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. We'll hear more from your CBC National Business Desk. As we've been hearing, the White House threatening to slap Canada with a new 35% tariff on our exports. We'll get the latest from that coming up in our next half hour of the program. Also, still to come, Hercules and commercial flights have been helping take more than 40,000 folks out of Garden Hill. We'll hear from some of them here on the program coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 20 degrees right now. We had some thunderstorms overnight, and we're waking up to a shroud of smoke covering much of southern Manitoba, parts of the north as well, all under air quality warnings. Good chance we'll see more showers today, maybe even another thunderstorm. A high of 23, so much cooler than we were yesterday. A second state of emergency of the summer covers Manitoba, and an out-of-control wildfire is forcing thousands of people in Garden Hill and Nissinu Nation to leave their homes. The fly-in community northeast of Winnipeg is under mandatory evacuation. The province says the military started flying people out Wednesday night, with both the military and commercial flights continuing to fly people to Winnipeg yesterday. Russell Wood is a Garden Hill council member.
It started about Saturday, and then it escalated to the point where it is right now. It's one huge fire, and it was like I said, it's dangerous, very dangerous, because it's close by the community.
Premier Wab Kinew says some hotel rooms are available in Winnipeg for elders and those who have high medical needs. But he says most of those being forced to flee Garden Hill will be staying in congregate shelters. A company that wants to build a second port on Hudson Bay has federal permission to export liquefied natural gas through subarctic waters. But it won't happen anytime soon. Canada's energy regulator has authorized LNG exports through Hudson Bay by a company called Nistatan. The company still has to study the feasibility of a port near the Nelson River, find billions to build it, and meet other approvals. Premier Wab Kinew is not ready to sign on.
We're trying to do our homework and background work behind the scenes, make sure folks are comfortable with the direction forward, and then we'll move ahead with that.
An earlier effort to build a port along the Nelson River was abandoned 107 years ago. The 50th Winnipeg Folk Festival opened last night at Birds Hill Provincial Park. After a couple of difficult post-pandemic seasons, the festival is thriving again, even as other Canadian music festivals scale back or close their doors. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
On the opening night of Folk Fest, Gary Conway explains why he's come to every festival for 19 years.
The vibe, it's just so open and comfortable, and it lets people be who they want to be for at least a brief period of the year.
Conway's not alone. At least 13,000 paying customers a day are expected at Folk Fest this weekend. No mean feat in the summer where other festivals are struggling or shutting down. Regina Folk Fest is no more after 55 seasons. Vancouver Island Music Fest is done after 30, and Montreal's Festival sur le Canal est fermé after 17 seasons. Winnipeg Folk Fest director Valerie Chant says her festival survives partly on multi-generational appeal, but she's aware what's happening elsewhere.
We take no pleasure in being solid while we have good friends who are struggling.
Folk Fest continues through Sunday. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to slap a 35% tariff on all Canadian goods as the two countries negotiate a trade agreement. Trump's latest threat came in a letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney posted on social media last night. The tariffs take effect August 1st. And Trump wrote he will increase the levies if Canada retaliates. Prime Minister Carney is treating Trump's threat as a revised deadline to get a trade deal done with the United States. He posted on social media saying his government will continue to defend workers and businesses. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Premier Wab Kinew says he is still listening to experts after scrapping a redesigned choice for a deadly intersection experts from his own government preferred. The province confirming this week it won't put up an R-cut intersection where 17 people were killed 2 years ago, the Trans-Canada and Highway 5 near Carberry. Kinew says the government couldn't have gone ahead with that proposal after a meaningful consultation with locals.
If we would have just pushed ahead with that in the face of very adamant opposition from the community, it would have shown that that consultation wasn't really real.
Some people in the community want an overpass. The Premier says the idea will be considered. rolling, throwing, retrieving, and delivering tennis balls. 60 young ball kids are on the same courts as world-class tennis players at the Winnipeg National Bank Challenger this week. They collect balls to return to the players. They also get them towels or drinks during changeovers. Ball kids follow the rules of the game seriously.
Always watch if there's a ball coming or when to roll it on a first serve and second serve. And to always make sure if the player's about to serve, don't throw it yet and then just wait till he's done.
Tennis-wise, it works in like your agility and your speed because like you always have to be watching the ball and going fast. It works in your reaction to balls, which you also need as a tennis player.
The finals of the tournament are on Sunday at the West St. Paul Tennis Club. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fondal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Hello to the folks watching us on CBC Television and streaming us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Leif Larson is our studio director. Abby Adiemi is our tech and has been following all of that smoke, and it's going to stick around for a while.
Yeah, good morning. You're waking up this Friday morning to local smoke impacting most of the regions from the north all the way down south. Woke up, we have this air quality warning in place for much of Manitoba today due to that smoke from the fires in the north. The smoke is actually making the air hard to breathe, and it's reducing visibility in a lot of areas. Looking at Winnipeg here, you might be thinking it's a foggy condition. No, it's the smoke, and it's also spreading all the way towards the U.S. border, and we're seeing it go towards Brandon, Gimli, Dauphin, Thompson, and even the powerful influence surrounding areas. So if you're having health issues, if you're having trouble breathing, I'd advise to reduce your outdoor times. Now, looking at conditions in the regions, Winnipeg at this time, we're seeing 20 degrees, smoky skies, making the air really hazy in the city. We're expecting mainly cloudy skies through the day. We do have a good chance of showers this afternoon, coming with a risk of thunderstorms, and it will feel warm and a bit muggy at some point this afternoon. We'll see highs around 23 degrees. The smoke is going to be sticking around for most of the days into the overnight period, so you want to take care. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region at this time. Modern, Winkler, Alton, and Morris, all the way down to the Emerson border. We're seeing temperatures around 19 and 20 degrees. That smoke, that air quality warning also is impacting that area. We'll see temperatures get to 24 degrees. Now, for Brandon and the rest of the Westman region, we're looking at 19 degrees at this time. Smoky skies also in that region. Expect cloudy conditions today with showers and possible thunderstorms later. That winds will be coming light from the north, turning mild by the afternoon period, and then it's going to change direction to the northwest. We'll see highs around 20 degrees. Dauphin is at 16 right now. We also have air quality statements in effect for that region. We saw light rain earlier. Now we have cloudy conditions in Dauphin. The skies will stay mostly cloudy for the rest of the day. Later in the afternoon, we do have a good chance of showers and thunderstorms coming to that region. High will be around 23 degrees. For Gimli, we're looking at 18 degrees right now. Also smoke in the air, warming up to 23 degrees. The powerful influence Thompson, we're seeing temperatures around 13 and 14 degrees, also smoke impacting that area. While further north in Churchill, we have mostly cloudy conditions. You see a mix of sun and clouds. 11 degrees right now, warming up to 22. So it's going to be more like a smoky conditions across a board today, and we'll see highs close to 23, 24, 25s in most of the regions. For traffic, if you see anything, you may call 788-3093.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Abby Adiemi here on the program. I'm Faith Fondal. Phil Demont also standing by from your CBC National Business Desk. Good morning.
Morning, Faith.
The White House, as we've been hearing, threatening to slap Canada with a new 35% tariff on our exports. Negotiation tactic, or is this an escalation, do you think, in the trade war?
It's both, really. 35% is a big increase from the 25% already in place on that portion of exports that fall outside the existing trade agreements. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump threatening Canada with higher levies. This is the letter he sent to Ottawa, also posted on Truth Social. He's been sending out the administration has been sending out letters to various countries for the past week outlining potential tariffs if some deal isn't reached by August 1st, and that's what this letter was. But it's different because of the size of our trade with the U.S. More than $3.5 billion in goods crosses the border each day, $1 trillion annually. Both sides had been working on a deal, and Canada has a self-imposed deadline of July 21st. In his Truth Social, though, Trump outlined a pair of long-standing gripes about Canadian policy as the reasons for the higher tariff level. Fentanyl interdiction and dairy supply management both don't make sense, or neither makes sense if you proper English. Fentanyl crossing from Canada into the U.S. makes up less than 2% of the drugs going into the U.S., that drug going to the U.S. U.S. milk exporters basically have never been hit by the high dairy tariffs. Quotas are an issue in that sector. The tariffs aren't. It's basically a power play. You look what happened with the digital services tax, something both Donald Trump and Joe Biden hated. Ottawa recently dropped that tax against streaming services. It was an effort to restart stalled talks between Canada and the U.S. Now you got a new threat and it's the same old gripe. Basically, the first time around, first Trump administration, you had the sense that there was negotiation. You could see kind of a deal. Now it looks like Washington figures Ottawa blinked once on the digital services tax, so we'll just keep them blinking like shining a flashlight in your eyes.
I guess we'll wait to see what happens here.
Yeah.
It looks like someone might be looking at snapping up Tony the Tiger. Kellogg's about to be bought. Is this true?
Yeah, Ferrero, the Nutella people. Kind of a weird mix if you think about it, but they're buying $23 a share, $3.1 billion. Looks like a friendly takeover. Ferrero's been trying to make a bigger splash in the U.S. market for the past few years. 2022, it bought an American ice cream maker, also purchased the U.S. chocolate business of Nestle's, but Kellogg's would be its biggest purchase. The move represents also Ferrero's big first foray into breakfast cereals. Currently, its portfolio is more or less chocolates and candy with a big few other things in there. Kellogg's, though, it was a way to boost a sagging stock price with no future. In March, a share in Kellogg's worth about $22, but then it fell out a bit, slumping to $15 in June. And the reason the first quarter, 2025, posted weak financial results, sales off, earnings down 50%, but it cut its full-year outlook. And what that kind of meant, Faith, was the stock price was probably unlikely to recover anytime soon. And part of the longer-term problem is America's love affair with cornflakes kind of over. Dollar sales of morning gruel in the U.S. up 3.5%, 2018 to 2023. But the actual volume of cereal eaten, so you strip out the price increases, down 25% in the past 15 years. So people just aren't eating cereal as much. If you're Kellogg's, you're now part of a bigger empire, so there's more ability to find other kind of synergies to use that word I hate.
And do you think they're going to change Tony's thing to their gut because it's Ferrero?
yeah, they do Kinder too, so maybe you'll see Tony in a Kinder thing.
Okay, apparently there's a company that makes sneakers out of a spray can. What? Really?
Yeah, it's cool technology. I've seen a video of it or a couple of them. It's a Swiss company, On. Sneaker company, 2.5% of the global market share, but the new technology will help. The spray-on sneaker works like it sounds. A robot sprays an ultra-thin plastic rope a mile long in a spiral around the model of a foot. Now, the sneaker sole's already attached to the foot mold, so effectively the robot's creating an upper, much like you would spray paint a wall.
Okay.
I know, it works like that too. The mold rotates, not the robot,
right,
but it just keeps spraying. You can make the upper part of a running shoe in about 3 minutes. Now, I did the math on this. If you look at a typical sneaker maker, 1,200 pairs a day, but it works out to be 3 pairs per worker per hour. Robot, by contrast, 20 uppers in an hour. The runner is like a sock. It's ultra thin, ultra flexible, so you can slip it on like you would a slipper or something like that. No laces, no sneaker eyes. Some of the athletes at the 2024 Olympics in Paris wore these things. They're apparently ultra light, but not in the pocketbook. $330 a pair.
Also, if there are no laces, how can my cat eat them and have to go to the emergency department?
Yeah, there's that too.
Never mind. Okay, it's Friday. Can you tell? The markets, does it feel like a Friday with the numbers today?
Nah, it's not a happy Friday in Europe. They're expecting one of those tariff letters out of the U.S. So Germany, France off close to 1%, UK down as well. A little more mixed in Asia. Nikkei down, Hong Kong up. Oil, 63 cents to the upside, $67.20 a barrel. Gold's up $28, $3,353 an ounce. And the Canadian dollar, it's down, but only slightly, 73 2/100 of a cent U.S.
All right, have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Faith.
That's Phil DeMont from your CBC National Business Desk. 15 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, and we are hitting the final stretch of the Calgary Stampede, and in particular, the Rangeland Derby, aka the chuckwagon races. This year, there's a new face on the scene, DJ King, a rookie racer at Stampede, but a veteran in his own right. King is a former NHL player with the St. Louis Blues and Washington Capitals. The CBC's Lauren McGuinness met up with him and one of his horses in the Stampede barns earlier this week.
Can you introduce this horse to me?
Yeah, in Kentucky, he goes on the left lead. Yeah, he's about 14 years old.
Strong, fast, smart, what?
He's a caddy horse. Yeah, he's a lead horse that when he hunts those barrels hard and in and out pretty good. Yep.
Now, I saw you when I came around, you had maybe some youngsters sitting on your lap, and I think your kids are a little older, but not quite ready to be outriders yet?
No, not quite yet. They're 9 and 10 years old. They do a lot of work in the barns now. They're at that age where they want to help out. They take the outriders over there with help right now. A busy show here, right? Some of the other shows, Jacob, he's 10 and he can do it by himself, but a lot going on here. Just don't want to rush them into that kind of stuff. But they're growing up with the sport. They're going to learn a lot of things for sure.
Now you come from a sport background, to put it mildly.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, we grew up in a hockey family for sure. That grew up on the farm with horses. So horses were always there. But we're a hockey family growing up, and then very fortunate. It took me a long way, so it was good. And then now I'm coaching the boys, and then they'll do that, and then get the wagons in the summer, and we'll see where life takes them.
Is there anything about playing NHL hockey that translates to being a good chuckwagon driver and and leading a team and all that?
I think just being a professional is no matter where you are, is you got to be dedicated, right? Sacrifice got to be made, and you got to do the right preparation, and that'll be the thing you get out of it, is just learning that it takes a lot of hard work to succeed, right? And all the little things, the fine details make a big difference. And when you run a crew in the barn and all that kind of stuff, it shows on the track for sure.
You're not new to this, but first time at the Stampede, have I got that right?
That is correct. Yeah, first time here. I'm a rookie, so been driving for just over 11 years now. So things are going good. And then, like I said, it's my first experience here at the Calgary Stampede as a competitor. I mean, I've been here lots before, but never with the lines in my hand.
How's the week going with the lines in your hand?
It's going good so far. I mean, one day I take it back and not hit that barrel, but that's the way she goes. But no, just chip it away, and horses are running really well, and crew's going good, and the grind's on, and we're halfway through the thing, so we'll just keep grinding away.
You got work to do. Thanks for talking to us.
No problem. Thank you very much.
That is former NHLer turned Calgary Stampede chuckwagon rookie DJ King. The greatest outdoor show on earth wraps up this Sunday. This next piece of music is rooted in the spirits of Daft Punk and Jamiroquai. See if you can hear those influences in this next one. Here is Phrase with Life Raft.
Tell it like it is for a minute. Lift up your veil and say, walking on a fine line between us, is keeping wind in the sail.
That is Phrase with his song Life Raft, that is. It came out a couple of weeks ago. We're at 10 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. The deadly flash floods in Texas have raised serious concerns about the reliability of emergency warning systems. Many people say alerts either came too late or didn't arrive at all. In Canada, some areas with unreliable cell service and coverage could face similar problems. Experts say now might be the time to strengthen the emergency systems we count on. Joining us now with more on this is Jack Rozdilski, Professor of Disaster and Emergency Management at York University, joining us from Toronto by Zoom. Jack, welcome to the program. Hello.
Thank you.
Manitobans will know about these emergency alerts because yesterday at 1:30, all of our phones buzzed and beeped as the province issued a second provincial-wide state of emergency because of wildfires. For other places who may not have ever seen this, how would you explain how alerts come to us? For most folks, it's phones, but there are other ways, right?
Yes, and in Canada, there is an overlapping system which generally consists of 3 parts that can overlap. The first part is something that you mentioned. There's something that's called the Alert Ready system, which is a national system across 10 provinces and 3 territories. The Alert Ready system has the ability to communicate directly with wireless devices by sending a loud, distinct beeping tone to your smartphone with a message that appears on the screen. Second, something that's also being implemented are regional alert systems that build upon the national system. For example, some provinces do have their own separate alert systems. Third, at the localized level, there are systems that go by various names. Even in some places which have large institutions like universities, these public and private large institutions may have their own private mass notification systems. So in Canada, we have this patchwork of overlapping systems.
Right, and part of the issue that comes up when you look at this patchwork of systems, it really does rely on cell service or data service from the cell towers. There are lots of places in the country where you don't have cell service. What happens when you don't have that? Will your phone go off?
That becomes a problem. For many Canadians who live in the southern portions of the nation along the American border where populations are dense, reliable cell phone service is taken for granted. But due to Canada's vast landmass, geography, and widely dispersed population, gaps do exist. And not only for emergency alerts, but for basic public safety purposes, there are geographical limits to the effectiveness of cell phone and data networks.
Jack, what's at play here? Because we've had variations of this conversation about having some kind of reliable nationwide system. In your work in emergency management and disaster management, what could be in the way of putting something like that together? What interests are essentially divergent from being able to get this done?
I think the interest at play, first of all, would be not putting all our eggs in one basket. For example, as you mentioned, there's data and other internet-based services such as text messaging, social media, and various apps that work. But there are also simpler systems, less dependent on digital wireless technology. The broadcast medium is very important. Television, AM and FM radio, dedicated weather radio, and even ham or amateur radio can be effective. In some areas, systems like sound-based warning systems. Take, for example, imagine the old air raid sirens, where you have a siren to notify residents with a loud outdoor wailing horn type sound. And on the hyper-local level, in dense communities, places like campsites or even large apartment buildings, actions like going door to door, public announcements through loudspeakers, or even ringing church bells can be used to notify people in the event of crisis or emergency.
Right. I remember going to a National Historic Site in British Columbia, and in the church there was a big sign that said, "Please do not ring the bell. This is our fire alarm." So
yes, it does get your attention.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like what you're saying is for any kind of alerting system to be effective, there has to be lots of layers. Did I get that right?
Yes, that would be correct. The more layers we have, the higher chances are that everyone receives the message when they need it by one form or another. Even if your phone is not working or your battery dies or some other complicated mistake happens, you may have the chance of hearing the siren or a bell ringing or someone going around with a loudspeaker on top of their truck. There are many types of systems to alert people, and we should consider the full spectrum of warning and alert systems.
And of course, at the heart of all of this is people's safety and people's lives, as we saw in Texas. So, Jack, thank you for this, and take good care.
Thank you.
That is Jack Rozdilsky, Professor of Disaster and Emergency Management at York University. We reached him in Toronto. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Heather Wells joining us now from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Good morning.
Good morning. Another morning with another northern community on the move. Thousands of people from Garden Hill and Nisanu First Nation are being forced out of their homes by wildfire. The province says the out-of-control fire is threatening structures, including fuel tanks. We're going to hear from one teenager who arrived in Winnipeg yesterday and what he worries about as they try to settle in and stay safe in Winnipeg. Canada's energy regulator has approved liquefied natural gas exports through Hudson Bay, but that won't happen anytime soon. Premier Wab Kinew says his government is not signed on to the idea yet. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Hey, Heather, do you like sardines?
You know what? I cannot. Even the scent of them.
Okay, that's good to know because we didn't. Don't worry, I did not bring any sardines.
Yeah, are you
going to
open a can?
I will not. I will. Well, I mean, I would like to, but I won't. Because
so you like them?
I do like sardines. And look, whether you like sardines or not, you have a chance to potentially have your mind changed, whether in the positive or the negative, because a Winnipeg organization is throwing this fish its own festival this weekend starting tonight. So, Heather, your mind might get changed, so stay tuned. We'll hear more about that.
If ever a fish deserved a festival, it's the sardine.
Yep, sure is. All right, take care.
You too.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. Abby Adiemi on the controls. Leif Larson is our studio director. Goodbye to the folks watching us on CBC Television. Of course, you can continue to watch and listen on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. We'll give you a full look at your forecast in our next half hour and talk about the smoke and have a whole bunch of fun things on the program as well. Stay tuned. World Report is standing by.
On the current.
Through the thick smoke, you hear the help before you see it.
I'm Megan Williams. More and more Canadian communities are living through wildfires. And even after the emergency has ended, returning home is hard. We'll look at rebuilding and a changed sense of safety coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report.
Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening Canada with a fresh round of tariffs, 35% on all Canadian goods starting August 1st. He made the threat in a letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney and posted it on social media overnight. For more, I'm joined by Olivia Stefanovic in our Parliamentary Bureau. Olivia, take us through the details of Trump's tariff threat.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to slap a 35% tariff on all Canadian goods. That's on top of the existing industry-specific tariffs effective August 1st. And he warns that those levies will increase if Canada retaliates. He says if Canada responds with counter levies, he will add that onto his 35% tariff. His justification? Well, Trump cites the fentanyl crisis, Canada's supply management system, and he calls Canada's trade deficit with the U.S. a major threat to its economy and national security. Now, this latest threat from Trump comes 10 days from the July 21st deadline that Canada was working towards to strike a new trade deal with its southern neighbor. In his letter to Carney, Trump says tariffs on Canada may go up or down depending on the relationship between the two countries. Trump says he might consider an adjustment if Canada works with the U.S. to stop the flow of fentanyl, and he says there will be no tariff if Canada or companies within the country decide to build or manufacture products within the U.S.
So, of course, now we're looking to see sort of what the Canadian government is going to respond to this. What have you been hearing?
Well, the Prime Minister issued a statement just before midnight last night, saying that Canada will work towards reaching a new trade agreement with the U.S. by August 1st. And throughout the trade negotiations, Carney says that the Canadian government has defended workers and businesses and will continue to do so. Carney also says that Canada has made vital progress to stop the scourge of fentanyl. He also touts the work he's doing with the provinces and territories to build one Canadian economy and strengthen other trading partnerships around the world. Now, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand is in Malaysia today for ASEAN meetings, and she was scheduled to meet with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, which could potentially have been tense following this tariff announcement, but that meeting did not happen. Her office says the scheduling just didn't work out.
Olivia Stefanovic in Ottawa, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, after more than 4 decades of armed struggle, the Kurdish PKK has started disarming voluntarily. Since the 1980s, the militant group has been fighting for an independent state within Turkey. The conflict has claimed more than 40,000 lives, but questions remain about what, if anything, the Turkish government will give in exchange for the disarmament. Dorian Jones has more from Istanbul.
In a carefully planned ceremony, a small group of fighters of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, handed over their weapons to a delegation of Kurdish politicians and Turkish intelligence officers in northern Iraq. The PKK has built up a wide network in Syria, Iran and Iraq, where it's now mainly based after the Turkish army successfully drove out most insurgents. The group is designated as a terrorist organization in Turkey, Canada and most Western countries. On Wednesday, the imprisoned PKK leader, Abdullah Öcalan, released a video message backing the disarmament. This is a voluntary transition from the stage of armed struggle to the stage of democratic politics and law, he says. This should not be considered as a loss, but as an historical gain. Even though jailed, Öcalan retains considerable influence over the group and is at the forefront of efforts to end the conflict. However, the Turkish government hasn't publicly committed to offering any concessions, beyond President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's promise that good things will follow disarmament. With previous peace attempts having failed, distrust exists on both sides, but today's disarmament will add to the momentum to bring permanent peace. Dorian Jones, CBC News, Istanbul.
The United Nations has released new information on the number of people killed while seeking aid in Gaza. The Human Rights Office says nearly 800, the number standing at 798 right now, have died since the end of May. About 3/4 of those deaths were near sites run by the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Ravina Shamdasani is with the UN.
Where people are lining up for essential supplies such as food and medicine, and where they are being attacked, where, again, as my colleagues have said, they have a choice between being shot or being fed. This is unacceptable, and it's continuing.
The U.S. and Israeli-backed organizations has been condemned for what critics call the militarization of aid. The GHF uses private American security and logistics companies to get supplies into Gaza by passing a UN-led system that Israel says had let Hamas militants divert aid. Back in this country, New Democrats are on a path to rebuild their party after its worst ever election loss, and the search for a new NDP leader begins as early as Labor Day. The CBC's David Thurton has a preview of who may be interested in running.
I am definitely seriously considering, now that we know that there's enough time, to have a great, exciting family contest.
Avi Lewis comes from a political pedigree. His dad, Stephen Lewis, once the leader of the Ontario NDP. David Lewis, one of the founders of the modern NDP, was his grandfather. Like them, Avi wants to do his part to rebuild Canada's New Democrats.
There's been a lot of upset and internal angst, and some of it is spilled out publicly since the election, which is inevitable but unfortunate. And this, I think, is a real turning point where we can start coming together.
Aside from Lewis, a sitting NDP MP, Heather McPherson, might also run.
Let's be honest, the last election was a wake-up call.
McPherson, in a recent social media video.
The NDP played it safe. We stayed on the sidelines while people were asking us for solutions. And as a result, we lost trust.
The complete list of leadership rules has not been finalized, but the party confirms what sources have told CBC News. It will run from September to March with an entrance fee of $100,000.
It would definitely limit the field in terms of who could run.
Libby Davies, a longtime BC NDP MP, lamenting the high financial bar.
Because they would obviously have to have that ability to raise that kind of money in a fairly short period of time.
The hefty fee might repel some, but it could propel the National Party back into better financial shape after a tough election. David Thornton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, a group of black men in the Halifax area is determined to tackle a growing crisis. Intimate partner violence has been declared an epidemic in the province with high rates in black communities. The CBC's Elizabeth Chu was invited to join them at an open discussion about prevention in a place where they feel comfortable.
About 15 men are gathered for haircuts at a barbershop near Halifax. Before a conversation starts about stopping intimate partner violence in the Black and African Nova Scotian community. Barber Derek States offered up his space.
I feel like it's a great place for them to share their thoughts and how they feel. You look to go to a therapist, I could be your therapist.
Trained therapist, social worker Mario Roll organized the program.
We talk about how to do better, to work on your behavior, your attitudes, your emotions, to help foster a positive, healthy community.
Participants are opening up about how stress, beefs on social media, and the reality of their lives as black men can build up.
Your partner asks you a question, you're still loaded with that emotion from work, you just lash out on her.
For what you know now, what would you do?
It all starts with understanding that you cannot control what happens to you. You can only control yourself.
With tips on how to stay calm and support each other, the program wraps up.
Honestly, it's good every time I come here. It's always around something that's for the betterment of us.
I know I feel good about myself every time I leave this place, so.
The hope is to create lasting bonds among men to help break the cycle of domestic violence. Elizabeth Chu, CBC News, Lakeside, Nova Scotia.
And recapping our top story, U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening another 35% tariffs on Canadian goods. That is in addition to the existing industry-specific tariffs, such as the one on steel and aluminum. Trump says the tariffs will come into effect on August 1st. In a post online, Prime Minister Mark Carney says he's treating this as an extension of the July 21st deadline to get a Canada-U.S. trade deal. He says his government will continue to defend Canadian workers and businesses. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Magandang umaga, good morning, Manitoba. Faith Fondal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence on this very smoky Friday morning. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Coming up on the program, some visitors were flown out of Atakaki Provincial Park yesterday after a nearby wildfire got dangerously close. One guest was out fishing when he saw the sky literally turn red. We'll hear from him as he describes what that was like. We'll also hear from Garden Hill evacuees who arrived in Winnipeg yesterday. More than 4,000 expected to have left the fly-in community because of wildfires. First, though, do you chat to ChatGPT for medical advice? The Ontario Medical Association is seeing a rise in folks using AI as doctors because of a shortage of physicians. It is happening here too. We'll hear from Doctors Manitoba about the dangers of medical misinformation online. Stay tuned. First, though, we're going to head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Heather Wells joining us with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a mass evacuation now underway in Garden Hill First Nation. An out-of-control wildfire is threatening that fly-in community. Chief Dino Flett flew into Garden Hill last night. He says, as of last night, no structures had been lost. His biggest concern, though, he says, is for people's safety. So we'll hear more about that. And after a few difficult post-pandemic seasons, the Winnipeg Folk Festival is thriving again. No fewer than 13,000 paying fans are expected at Birds Hill Park every day this weekend. This at a time when some outdoor music festivals in Canada are scaling back or shutting down. We'll hear more in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Leif Larson is our studio director today. Abby Adiemi, following the commute and following the very smoky conditions. Good morning.
Good morning. The main story today, smoke stretching from here in Winnipeg, tracking it all the way into the northern part of the province. We're going to see cloudy conditions with showers expected and highs near 25 degrees in most of the regions today. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 19 degrees. Anything in traffic, give me a call, 788-3093.
Coming up to 13 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. As you've been hearing, Snow Lake and Garden Hill were the latest communities to evacuate yesterday. Both orders coming ahead of the province-wide state of emergency, which came into effect Thursday afternoon, that is. Garden Hill is a fly-in community about 450 kilometers northeast of Winnipeg. The Canadian Armed Forces is also assisting with the evacuations. The CBC's Alana Cole spoke with some Garden Hill residents outside of the Lila Soccer Complex. One of them was Dashel Fiddler, a teenager who came to Winnipeg with family members.
My name's Dashel, and I'm 17.
So just tell me a little bit, whatever you feel comfortable telling me what happened yesterday, and when did you hear that you might have to evacuate?
Okay, Garden Hill is mostly close by a lake. That's where it started. Like people were building houses on lakes, right? And I guess everyone started going out into the inland stuff, right? And that's where the fire is. It's more inland, and it's about to travel to the lake area.
And could you see smoke, or could you smell smoke yesterday?
Yesterday, I saw light fire. You know, it's like far away back where I live. There's like South End to North End, and I live around South End. And I seen like light where my house is.
So you live in the South End,
yeah.
And where you were, you could see like light, as in like the fire will start burning.
Yeah.
What went through your mind when you saw that?
I was just thinking, wow, my house is probably gonna go down. And all the stuff I did as a kid, games I played, yeah. Guess it made me feel a bit sad just to lose everything like that. Yeah.
Have you been told anything about where you're going to be staying? Are you going to get to move to a hotel? Has anyone told you anything yet?
I guess we're all trying to find out. I've been trying to ask my parents for what's going on, you know. I really want to know what's going on. Plus, I want to know where I am, so at least I know I'm not that far from anyone else.
Dashelle Fiddler is an evacuee from Garden Hill. They were speaking with the CBC's Alana Cole.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
50 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Earlier this week, the Ontario Medical Association found that a lack of access to primary care is leading more people to rely on AI for medical advice. In some cases, people are receiving diagnoses and even treatment recommendations from artificial intelligence, with some going as far as trying DIY or do-it-yourself remedies found on TikTok. Doctors Manitoba has made the same observation here, worrying that patients are finding misleading information online and taking it for face value. Joining us now by Zoom is Dr. Nichelle Desilets, who is also president of Doctors Manitoba, joining us again by Zoom. Thank you for waking up and coming on the program. Hello.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's talk about this, because as I read that introduction, what worried you or worries you the most as you hear folks doing this?
Well, what I'm seeing as a family doctor is that people are accessing more information than they've ever had before. Social media, the internet, different resources that we have available to us, it's all accessible to people. And I've really seen probably a bit of an uptick since the advent of publicly available AI, things like ChatGPT and other large language models. So what I'm seeing is that people are coming in kind of having done their research and having ideas about what's going on with them and what they think they might want to try in terms of treatment or management.
Is that helpful, or can it be very unhelpful?
I think it could go either way. I have a family practice where I've known my patients for a long time. And for the most part, I love it when people come in having done their research and having given some thought to their health concerns. The medical relationship is a two-way relationship. Some people just want their doctor to tell them what to do, but for the most part, it's a two-way conversation, and we're coming to a mutual agreement and a mutual plan that works for everyone, that the doctor feels is safe, but that the patient finds is agreeable. So I will say that I just love it when people come informed. However, when people don't have access to a medical professional to check their knowledge and their research against, or when they don't know how to critically think about what kind of information they're receiving, it can lead to people having false beliefs about what's going on with them, or false information, and then leading them down a path that is maybe not best for their health.
Right. My best friend likes to tell me to put my medical degree down whenever I talk about health things, and I go, yeah, okay, fine. Doctors have practiced over the years through training, practical training, and from learning in school, how to figure something out with a critical lens. What happens when you have someone who falls into the trap of the internet said it was this, I better start doing this, and I can't access my doctor, so I'll just do it. What's at stake here, do you think?
So I think there's two parts to it. One is you might be engaging in a treatment or a practice that is actually harmful to you. So for example, things that you might see on social media would be certain recommended diets or certain recommended products. I mean, if you're consuming some information and, on the third slide, there's a specific product that's going to fix your problem, someone's probably making money off of that. So, we don't know. You might not know if this interacts with medications that you're already on, if it might be harmful to you. And then the other part that I'm seeing with it is that folks are missing out on appropriate treatment. So while they're going down the path of perhaps some false information and following a suboptimal treatment plan or medication, they're actually missing the opportunity to get better faster with a medically recommended treatment plan that is tailored to them.
I want to go back to the idea of, but I don't have a doctor, or I don't have a regular family practitioner. if not the internet or if not AI, what do people do? What do you suggest people do?
Yeah, I completely understand. As a rural doctor, I see this a lot. I see a lot of patients in the emergency room that don't have family doctors, and that's why they're presenting to the emergency room. And of course, like it's completely understandable. People are trying to make do with what they have. So when trying to access medical information, if you don't have a long-term relationship with a family physician to check that info against, what I would suggest is find other ways to double check your information online. If someone is recommending a specific product or a specific medication, someone's probably making money off of that, and I would probably recommend not following that information. If you do find something that looks credible, check where the source is. Is it a credible organization or a medical society? And then check if you can find that same recommendation from multiple sources that seem credible. And then when in doubt, a primary care provider is always happy to give you advice on that. And while I completely acknowledge that the primary care crisis is one of the causes of the propagation of misinformation, there's still some other resources available like walk-in clinics and virtual medicine and stuff. So physicians are always happy to answer questions and help direct people in this.
And you also are trying a new thing this summer where you're sending medical students to events to offer medical advice and talk about gettinghealthy.ca. Where can people find it?
Sure. So gettinghealthy.ca is a website developed by Doctors Manitoba where you can find research-backed facts and information about how to prevent disease and live a longer and healthier life. A big part is our Getting Healthy guide where you can enter your age, your gender, and then it will give you back what the recommendations are that are tailored to you in terms of screening, immunizations that might be recommended to you, things that might be more common in your age group, things like that. We also have an area where you can enter your contact information and receive updates as they're added to the website. We have lots of different articles that are written by Manitoba physicians for Manitobans, and we're always adding more to that website. So you can sign up to receive updates whenever a new article is available. Finally, we are doing our summer challenge again this year where we're encouraging Manitobans to take another step towards improving their health. So you can enter for free on our site, and there's a chance to win a year of free groceries worth $5,000.
Dr. Desilets, thank you for your work and for making space today and time. Take good care.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well. Dr. Nichelle Desilets, President of Doctors Manitoba and a family physician in Nipawa. "23 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. When he was younger, his was fascinated by the technology of cassette tapes. So much so that he accidentally destroyed one of his dad's favorites, trying to figure out how it worked. Yeah, that's happened to me too. He's channeling that sound onto a new EP called Good Gold Cassette. Here's his with Get Go.
I got a new home, I gotta get mine. I've been killing so much time from the get-go. I got a new show, I gotta get on. I've been wasting so much time, don't you know?
That's his with Get Go. Let's head to our CBC National Sports Desk, and Scott Reguer joining us now. Good morning.
Happy Friday, Faith.
Happy Friday to you as well. Scott, we're nearing the conclusion of tennis's most prestigious tournament. What's the latest from Wimbledon?
Well, the men's semifinals get underway in just a couple of minutes, Faith, and they are tantalizing. Two-time defending champion Carlos Alcaraz will face Taylor Fritz. Fritz trying to become the first American since Pete Sampras 25 years ago to win the men's event. Then you have Jannik Sinner facing Novak Djokovic. And at 38, Faith, Djokovic is running out of chances to surpass Margaret Court for most Grand Slam victories, regardless of gender. 15 years his junior, Sinner has the better record when he and Djokovic have gone head-to-head. Meantime, we know our combatants in the women's final. Poland's Iga Świątek will take on American Amanda Anisimova. Now, I've talked about Anisimova this week, Faith, and how she left the sport for more than a year to travel, to paint, and to just forget about tennis for a while. She says clinching this spot in the Wimbledon final is vindicating.
When I took my break, a lot of people told me that you would never make it to the top again if you take so much time away from the game, and that was a little hard to digest. Because I did want to come back and still achieve a lot, and just me being able to prove that, you can get back to the top if you prioritize yourself. That's been incredibly special to me, and yeah, it means a lot.
Whether it's Anisimova or Świątek who prevails tomorrow, we will have a first-time Wimbledon winner.
Let's stay in England, Scott, but move over to soccer where another first has taken place. What are we talking about here?
Brilliant by Smith. This is fantastic. Can she finish? Oh, you bet. How about that? Olivia Smith with another golden moment at Anfield.
So that's the sound, Faith, of Olivia Smith scoring for Liverpool last season. Next season, the Canadian midfielder will be attempting to tickle the twine for Arsenal. And the Whitby, Ontario native will be paid a pretty pence, I guess, to do that. Arsenal has reportedly agreed to a world record £1 million transfer fee for Smith, so close to $2 million Canadian. This is not the first time Smith's made history, by the way, in the women's game. When she was just 15, Faith, she became the youngest player to make her debut for Canada's senior national team. So best of luck to Olivia Smith.
Best of luck indeed. Pretty busy sports weekend. What are you keeping an eye on?
Well, I have the Blue Jays, who begin their final series before the All-Star break tonight against the A's in Sacramento. Pitcher Max Scherzer, who's about to turn 41, will try to show us he's still got something left in the tank. Meantime, Marco Arop, he's got plenty in the tank. He'll compete against a familiar field this afternoon, Faith, in the 800 meters at an event, a Diamond League event in Monaco. Arop, who's from Edmonton, will take on every competitor he faced in the race at the Paris Olympics, where he almost won gold and settled for silver. Finally, it is stage 7 of the Tour de France today. Following a chaotic, crash-riddled start, Canadian cyclist Michael Woods is calling for better safety measures. The Ottawa native says tour organizers love crashes, which is why the daily highlight reels they produce are filled with broken bikes, blood, and somebody inevitably walking into an ambulance. Woods is not alone in his criticism. Here's Welsh writer Geraint Thomas.
It's not nice sat there when you just see everyone just like going left and right and like leaning on each other and almost crashing, and you're just like, boys, just like calm down. Everyone wants to do a good job, don't they? And like, I think, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm just like old now and just see the danger more, I don't know, but just chill.
Words to live by, Faith, as we get on our own bikes this weekend.
Yep, indeed. Scott, have a good weekend and talk to you next week.
Sounds good.
Scott Reguer from your CBC National Sports Desk. I'm Faith Bundahl here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 100.9 FM in Thompson, 105.3 FM in Dauphin, and of course everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Looks like it's just the usual slowdowns when it comes to the morning commute, but if you see other issues that's bugging you, let us know, 204-788-3093, 204-788-3093. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 19 degrees. Those thunderstorms that rolled through overnight really cooling us down. A high today of 23. We are once again covered in smoke, though. An air quality warning is in effect. A mass evacuation is underway in Garden Hill and Sinanoo Nation. An out-of-control wildfire threatening the fly-in community. Chief Dino Flett flew into Garden Hill last night.
You can't even see anything, just smoke. I mean, I'm surprised we even landed. You can't even see anything on from the air. This smoke is that thick.
Flett says as of last night, no structures had been lost. He says his biggest concern is people's safety. The province says more than 4,000 people will have to leave Garden Hill because of the fire. Military flights have been used to help get people out of the community and into Winnipeg. Canada's energy regulator has approved liquefied natural gas exports through Hudson Bay, but it won't happen anytime soon. A company called Nistanan is studying the feasibility of building a new port near the mouth of the Nelson River. It would take years, billions of dollars, and require other approvals. Premier Rob Canoe says his government has not signed on to the idea.
We're doing the legwork to try and get ready and make sure that the partners that we need to have on side have their concerns around ownership and decision making and environmental aspects all looked after. And then when we feel like things are in a good place and all the partners are ready to move forward, then you'll definitely hear more from us.
An earlier effort to build a port along the Nelson River was abandoned 107 years ago. U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to slap a 35% tariff on all Canadian goods as the two countries negotiate a trade agreement. Trump's latest threat came in a letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney posted on social media last night. The tariffs will take effect August 1st, and Trump wrote he will increase the levies if Canada retaliates. Prime Minister Carney is treating Trump's threat as a revised deadline to get a trade deal done with the United States. He posted on social media saying his government will continue to defend workers and businesses. You can hear more on this story as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Premier Canoe says he is not ignoring the advice of his government's experts. Following a public outcry, the government ditched one of the redesigned proposals for the deadly Trans-Canada and Highway 5 intersection near Carberry, where 17 people were killed in 2023. It's called an R-cut, and it's a setup forcing drivers to make a U-turn instead of turning left. Canoe says other portions of the intersection, like a roundabout, other options like a roundabout, or widening the median, would have provided a similar level of safety. Now he says the province will gather more feedback about the design.
Given the passion, given the emotions, given the history of the tragedy there, it makes sense for us to take more time and to, go with that alternative design.
Some in the community want an overpass, and the Premier says that idea will be considered. Well, the 50th Winnipeg Folk Festival opened last night at Birds Hill Provincial Park. After a couple of difficult post-pandemic seasons, the Folk Fest is thriving again, even as other Canadian music festivals scale back or close their doors. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
On the opening night of Folk Fest, Gary Conway explains why he's come to every festival for 19 years.
The vibe, it's just so open and comfortable, and it lets people be who they want to be for at least a brief period of the year.
Conway's not alone. At least 13,000 paying customers a day are expected at Folk Fest this weekend. No mean feat in the summer where other festivals are struggling or shutting down. Regina Folk Fest is no more after 55 seasons. Vancouver Island Music Fest is done after 30, and Montreal's Festival sur le Canal est fermé after 17 seasons. Winnipeg Folk Fest director Valerie Chant says her festival survives partly on multi-generational appeal, but she's aware what's happening elsewhere.
We take no pleasure in being solid while we have good friends who are struggling.
Folk Fest continues through Sunday. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, 60 young kids are getting a chance to get really close to the game of tennis. They are ball kids, and they're working at the Winnipeg National Bank Challenger this week at the West St. Paul Tennis Hub. They collect balls to return to the players and make sure the players have towels and drinks. But the ball kids get a lot in return.
I like really watching the players and like their resilience through the match, watching them like get some good hits and helping out them with the balls.
Since I'm a tennis player, also it's kind of like a view. As I watch the players, I can like imagine myself doing this in some couple of years.
I really like watching tennis, and being that close to the players is really fun.
The tournament finals will be played on Sunday. I don't think I'm coordinated enough to have been a ball kid.
I'm not sure I'm coordinated ever. Can you imagine that?
You have to be fast. You have to be agile.
Yeah. All things that I'm not sure I can do.
Yeah,
but you know what? Maybe we can both try, Heather.
How about I let you do that?
All right.
I'm a better fan.
Yeah. We'll discuss offline, as we like to hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. I'm Faith Bundahl here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 100.5 FM in Thompson, 89.3 FM here in Winnipeg. Leif Larson is our studio director today, and Abby Adiemi has been following all of that smoke, also following the commute. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning once again. Yes, we woke up to smoke this morning. Local smoke affecting most of the regions from the northern part of the province and tracking it all the way down south. We have air quality warnings in effect for most of the province this morning due to smoke from the fires we're seeing around. Now, this smoke is going to be making it harder to breathe for a lot of people. And if you're in where the fires really march, you will be noticing reduced visibility. Talking about conditions now in the other parts of the province, the Red River, the Pembina Valley, the Interlake region, we're seeing temperatures around 19 degrees right now with mild northwest winds. Most of these regions will be warming up close to 23 degrees, while the Westman and the Parkland region, we're seeing light rains and mostly cloudy conditions, also smoke in the air. Temperatures around 15, 16 degrees there. Those regions will get close to 20 degrees. Now, up north, the powerful influence surrounding areas, smoky skies, 14 degrees, highs of 25. Thompson is smoky at 13 at this time, warming up to 23 degrees, while in Churchill, we're just seeing mainly cloudy conditions at 11 degrees with the breeze coming from the northwest, and that will shift to southwest later, warming to 22 degrees. So it's more like smoky skies across the province, and cloudy conditions will come later with showers expected in a lot of areas down south. We'll see today's high getting close to 25, 26 degrees. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 19 degrees. Nothing in traffic yet from my end, I know, but the spots where we have construction, you just need to take it easy there and look out for construction workers. Slow down when needed. You see anything? 788-3093.
Well, a small fish is making a big name for itself this weekend. Sardines taking center stage at the first ever Sardine Festival. The event is being put on by Casa do Minho Portuguese Center of Winnipeg. Lucia Medeiros is vice president and joining us in studio now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sardines. Why sardines?
It's a Portuguese tradition. It's done back home in Portugal and here in the city, or anywhere where there's a Portuguese community, there's sardines being made.
And it's kind of hard to believe that it's the first ever Sardine Festival. What took so long for you to get here?
We actually started off doing it during Folklorama of 2022, and it was a great hit then. And so now this year we decided to incorporate it into a summer event and trying to have it outside in our outdoor patio in the back of our parking lot there, and just enjoying the fresh air and the sardines and having community come out and experience it.
I mean, you interact with lots of folks who both enjoy it, and including folks who may not like it. I think you're one of your kids.
My son, yeah.
Your son doesn't like it very much. I mean, how does that conversation go when you're like, just try it, please, it's going to be good? How do you interact with people who say, I don't know if I want to try it?
The same way you just said it, just try it. You might like it. You might like it, yeah.
Do you find people surprised when they try it and they go, okay, I actually kind of like this?
They do, yeah. At first, they're intimidated, I think, by the smell of it and the smell of fish on your hands. But once they put it into their mouth and it melts, they really enjoy it.
You were talking about how sardines are pretty important in Portuguese culture. How would you characterize how they're used in Portuguese culture?
They're used on a weekly basis.
Yeah?
Yeah. They're barbecued outside on a grill full of charcoal or coal.
Which in itself already adds this very specific flavor profile, right?
Yeah, and then we add sea salt to it, so it just adds that extra little bit of oomph to it. And if they're done correct, once you rip them off the bones, it just melts into your mouth.
Have you tried it when it's done not correctly?
There's been times I've made it incorrect.
How do you know when it's not done properly? Because it doesn't.
It doesn't fall off the bone as nicely.
Yeah. Do they? Are they used in every meal kind of thing, or is it specific to a certain time of day?
Most of the time in the evening. So when people are coming home from work on the weekends and it's a beautiful day outside, they're outside grilling and playing the Portuguese music outside, and family come over. It just becomes a festive event to have people over.
If you close your eyes and you sort of think about the first time or your earliest memory of having sardines, but having it cooked properly, do you remember what that moment was like?
I do. We used to have at our cultural center, we used to have a family picnic, and it used to be done at St. Malo's. And we would take the sardines there, and we would barbecue the sardines at St. Malo Park, and it was just, the gentleman who used to do it all the time it was amazing. That was the first time I can say that it was the best time, or the best taste,
So it brings a lot of very positive memories for you.
Oh, wonderful memories, yeah.
How do you like to eat them? Are they you eat them on their own, or do you eat them with other things?
We eat them with bread, so it's either water bread is what it is that we eat it with, and a salad. So very plain, very simple, and yeah.
What is your pitch for sardines? I happen to like sardines. Not everyone I know likes sardines. What is your pitch for why you think people should give them a try?
To experience maybe a little bit of what Portugal is like. I would think that would be probably my main reason to try it. And the flavor of it, you'd be surprised at the flavor of it.
Because it's not necessarily just fishy.
No, it isn't. No.
Right.
No, when you get the charcoal smell of it from the coal, it just adds, yeah.
So remind us, for the fest that's happening, what can people expect?
So it is happening tonight on June 11th at 7 p.m. at Casa de Minho Portuguese Center at 1080 Wall Street. And we have the barbecue happening outside in the back. It's free entry to come in. It's $1 a sardine.
That's it?
That's it.
That's a great deal.
Yeah. So it's $1 a sardine, and we're going to have a DJ out there as well. Sensational Sound is out there, and he's going to be playing music till whatever time in the evening. We also have an open bar for people to purchase drinks, Portuguese beer and Portuguese sangria and things like that there too.
So it really is a very, very big I guess an invitation to have an appreciation, a better appreciation for Portuguese culture.
Yes, yeah, and it's open for those who want to come out and experience this.
And so it is happening tonight, July the 11th, starting at 7 p.m. Lucia, thank you for coming in. And I know you couldn't bring any sardines today because, of course, you have to cook it. So we'll see you tonight.
I hope so.
It'll be fun.
It'll be our pleasure.
It'll be great. Thank you again, and take good care.
Thank you. You too.
Lucia Medeiros is Vice President of Casa de Minho Portuguese Center of Winnipeg. The event, as you heard, starts at 7 p.m. tonight and runs until late. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 189.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. With location sharing apps, it is easier than ever to keep tabs on your loved ones. You can watch their movements across a map from home, from work, or a nearby restaurant. But is that a good thing? The CBC Toronto's Shiloh Fagan asked people in that city how location sharing is changing our relationships.
I have location shared in the past. I would say wouldn't do it again. My ex used to use my location, find out people posting photos and videos in that area, and then see if she could see me in those photos and videos. And I didn't know about it. Led to a fight, so wouldn't do it again.
A lot of my friends, we kind of just all got on it just because of the area we live in, King Street West. If we see people on a patio in the summer, we can just kind of join. It's not creepy at all. Like, we just are all open with it. So I think it's just a way of getting together amongst friends and kind of keeping tabs on timing and like, when are you arriving, when should I leave, that kind of thing.
That's actually how I found out my friend was in an accident, by location sharing. So I'm for it and against it. He was just at the stop, at a corner for like 4 or 5 hours, and no one knew what happened. But then we drove there, and then the whole scene was shut down. He got hit by an 18-wheeler.
I've used location sharing with my friends and also with partners on a few occasions. I think at first I was adamantly against it. I thought it was kind of like an invasion of privacy. However, more recently in my latest relationship, I share my location, and I think it's been convenient almost to just kind of know what's happening. I think I felt it was a little big brothery for somebody to know where I was kind of at all times. And then there's, if you want to have a surprise for somebody or go somewhere, it kind of limits. And if you turn your location sharing off for that time, then you can easily be accused of something nefarious, even if that's not the case.
No, I do not, because I feel it's not very secure over the internet with just everything out there, and you don't know what information someone is fishing for. So personally, it's a no for me.
I think it depends on the relationship and who you're sharing your location with. Sometimes the use of it starts to differ. So maybe you're checking their locations for other reasons, not just for fun. You actually kind of want to get more insight as to where they're at, and I think that can invade privacy a bit. So I'd probably be a little bit more hesitant in future romantic relationships when I'm sharing it.
I use Life 360 to keep track of my kids. It tells me when they left the house, how long they've been at the house, where they go, how long they've been there. It tracks me their route. They're traveling with a friend, how fast that friend was driving. Yeah, so it's pretty good app. They have mine, so they can see where I'm going. It's just an open platform for everybody. Just keep an eye on everybody, I guess, in a sense.
What are they up to right now?
What are my kids up to right now? Let's spy on them. They are both at home.
CBC Toronto's Shiloh Fagan speaking with folks about using location sharing apps. What do you think about that? Do you think it's a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Have you had positive or maybe negative experiences with it? Call our listener line, 204-788-3205, 204-788-3205, or email radio893@cbc.ca. At 12 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, Alanis Morissette is on a huge tour of Europe right now and will be in South America next. There's no word yet on whether the Canadian pop icon will add any Canadian dates to her tour. So until we hear, let's listen back to something that started it all. This is Alanis Morissette with Hand in My Pocket.
I'm broke, but I'm happy. I'm poor, but I'm kind. I'm short, but I'm healthy. Yeah. I'm high, but I'm grounded. I'm sane, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm lost, but I'm hopeful, baby. And what it all comes down to is that everything's gonna be fine, fine, fine. 'Cause I've got one hand in my pocket and the other one is giving a high five.
That's Alanis Morissette with Hand in My Pocket. We're 9 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. A fishing trip was cut short for people staying at a lodge in Atakaki Provincial Park. Andrew Patterson arrived at Aikens Lake Lodge Monday morning, and although everything seemed normal at the start of the trip, he says he could tell something was off when the winds picked up yesterday, or on Wednesday, I should say. By Thursday, a wildfire had reached the shoreline of Aikens Lake. Patterson says he was out fishing on the water when the sky started suddenly turning red. The CBC's Brittany Greenslade spoke with Patterson, who described what that was like.
Andrew, tell me a little bit about where you were and what happened.
Well, we had been at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge since Monday morning on a fishing trip, and as we do every year. And we were, the first couple days, we knew that there were fires in the area, more so just because there was a little bit of smoke. But the first 2 days, the winds were super calm, so it really wasn't an issue. Although in the day, you could start seeing some more smoke coming up a little ways away. And then everything changed yesterday. The south winds were gusting to about 40. And in the course of about, I want to say 3 hours from the sort of the late morning to early afternoon with the hotter temperatures and the crazy winds, it just acted like a nuclear bomb to the fire. And it spread at a rate that was pretty much inconceivable. And then, as you can see in those videos, when we were coming back, it was looking pretty apocalyptic by the time we got back to near around the main camp.
For sure. So they were able to fly you guys out, and it was, where did you go from there?
Yeah, well, we flew from Aikens to Silver Falls, which is just south of Pine Falls, and that's where you go to. You leave your car, you jump on the plane there, you go to Aikens, and then when you finish, you come back and get out and take off from there for wherever you have to go.
You said you go up there every year, so obviously this a very different experience.
Yeah, well, to be honest, in 2021 I was up there, and we started to get, there were some fire concerns at that point, and we actually were on the last flight out in 2021, and at that point then there was, similar to this, sort of a mandatory evacuation, and I don't think they had guests for about a week after that. But the difference of then to now was that then was, I think, sort of more a blanket thing. Hey, you know what? We're fighting these fires. We don't have the possibility of having to deal with guests or anything like that during this time. So it's a good time to just have everyone leave. Whereas this time we were coming back into a situation that was beyond anything that I'd seen before, just with the amount of fire, the intensity of the fire, and the different places around the lake that it was raging on.
Yeah, things seem to have turned and happened pretty quick when it did turn.
Oh, it did. As they say, it was the perfect storm of the driest boreal forest combined with those crazy winds and a fire, and it was, as I say, it was just like a nuke of fire. In a lot of places that ended up taking things up a significant amount from, I think, what people had expected. But as I say, the staff did an incredible job. Keeping people calm, making sure they were taken care of for the ones that were in and around guests. And then many others were out doing things. They miraculously, I believe, and I want to touch wood saying this because I connected with a couple of the guys last night, and they saved, they were concerned about two outposts on the south part of the shore because they knew that the fire was eventually going to get to the shore. I think it just happened quicker than they had expected. But they had been prepping, cutting down trees and setting up sprinkler systems for the two structures that they have, these outposts that they have on the south end. And miraculously, those things did not burn yesterday. But they had people legit fighting the fires and doing everything they could. So it was amazing to see everybody kind of work there, in kind of a bit of a crisis situation. And then obviously they took care of the people really well. We went in, if there was, if there was ever any issue that the lodge was at all threatened. I mean, there were boats packed. Everyone was in a good spot, and then they got a couple planes to come in and take out all the guests around 5 o'clock or so. So that I mean, probably it's not like I didn't feel like we were in danger, but listen, I was just one person. I'm sure some people were pretty freaked out by just what they were seeing. And then bottom line, with them having to deal with all that, they probably didn't want to have to worry with guests at the time. So it made sense for everyone to leave a little earlier than was originally planned.
Andrew Pedersen, who was on a fishing trip at Aikens Lake Lodge earlier this week, speaking to the CBC's Brittany Greenslade. No homes or structures at the lodge were destroyed by the fire, but the lodge remains closed for now. Let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. And Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a state of emergency, the second one this summer, covers the entire province as wildfires flare up. One northern community, another, the latest to be threatened and to be evacuated, is Garden Hill. Thousands of people are being flown out of that community. They've been airlifted to Winnipeg on military planes and on commercial aircraft as well. We'll hear the latest on that. And thousands of music fans are crowding into Birds Hill Provincial Park this weekend for the 50th Winnipeg Folk Festival. And while other multi-artist events in this country are scaling back or closing down, the Folk Fest is thriving. No fewer than 13,000 paying fans are expected at Birds Hill Park every day this weekend. Your next local news is coming up at 8:30.
A lot of folks and a lot of music.
Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. The CBC's Bartley Kivas will join us in studio to talk about more on that story coming up in our next half hour of the program. Also, during the first wave of wildfire evacuations, Indigenous leaders were quick to call on the province to provide better and safer accommodation for evacuees. Now, as we settle into what has become the second wave of evacuations, the calls for safer and more secure housing have only grown louder. We'll have that conversation in our last half hour of the program. If you see any issues on your commute, 204-788-3093, 204-788-3093 is the commuter line to call. Leif Larson, our studio director, is standing by to take your phone call. Abby Adiemi is on the controls today. I'm Faith Fundal. Stay tuned. We'll have a full look at your weather forecast and more about the smoke that's essentially blanketing much of the listening region coming up after World Report. Stay tuned.
On cue. The author Emma Donoghue grew up in Ireland without much affection for her own country's traditional music. But when she left Ireland, whenever she heard it, she almost broke down. That music is now the score of her own new musical about immigration. Emma Donoghue will be here to tell you all about it.
So I knew that these songs would have really strong bones and I could use them as storytelling units.
Q with Tom Power this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland and on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Megan Williams. More and more Canadian communities are living through wildfires. And even after the emergency has ended, returning home is hard. We'll look at rebuilding and a changed sense of safety coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. We begin with a new threat to Canada from the U.S. President Donald Trump, a 35% tariff on all Canadian goods, on top of the sector-specific tariffs some industries are already dealing with. Trump made the threat in a letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney posted on social media. The CBC's Chris Glover has details for us from Washington.
It is not a long letter, but certainly it is a significant one. So let's dig into it this morning. Trump starts by saying it's a great honor to send it, and it demonstrates the strength, Trump says, of the trading relationship between our two countries. And then, of course, comes that bombshell. Trump says starting August 1st, the U.S. will charge a 35% tariff on Canadian products going into the United States. And that would be separate from sector-specific tariffs on things like steel and autos. And again, Trump mentioned fentanyl right off the bat and Canada's failure, he said, to stop the flow of the drug as the reason for these tariffs, but also said that other financial issues, including Canada's protection of things like the dairy industry, made the trading situation unsustainable. This all comes as trade negotiations between the U.S. and many countries were obviously ongoing, but Trump not happy, obviously, with the progress with Canada, and he laced that letter to Carney with a threat saying if Canada raises its tariffs in response, whatever number Canada chooses, that number would be added onto the 35% charge that he is announcing last night. Chris Glover, CBC News, Washington.
Meantime, Canadian industries and businesses are working to calculate the potential impact of these tariffs. Goldie Hyder is with the Business Council of Canada.
Our information from American sources is that it's only applicable to things that are not what's called CUSMA compliant, which is a Canadian version for USMCA. So that really would only capture about 6-7% of our economy. So don't panic, I guess, is part of the message. Stay focused and stay engaged.
Prime Minister Mark Carney also took to social media last night with his reaction to Trump's threat. He appears to be treating Trump's letter as a revised deadline for a U.S.-Canada trade deal, making it August 1st instead of July 21st. Carney says his government will continue to defend workers and businesses and has made vital progress in stopping what he calls the scourge of fentanyl. Well, Canada's job market seems to be resilient in the face of the Trump administration's trade war. Statistics Canada has just released its June employment report. It shows for the first time since January, the economy actually added jobs, 83,000 of them. CBC's senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
Even in normal times, this would be a pretty solid jobs report. But given just how much all the uncertainty from the trade war and the tariffs have been weighing on the economy, this gets boosted into a very good report indeed. There had been some debate leading up to this as to whether the job losses we'd seen so far this year, whether last month marked something of a bottom, as it were. We'd lost 55,000 jobs in manufacturing. The unemployment rate had reached 7%. Outside of COVID, that's the highest we'd seen since 2016. So it's fair to wonder if this is a statistical anomaly or something of a bounce back. The first increase in employment since January, wholesale trade and retail trade led every category in terms of job growth. And shrugging off the threat of tariffs is obviously timely, given how that threat was renewed just last night. And let's face it, Canada needs whatever resiliency it can find in the economy right now, given just how very real those threats have become. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
In other news, Donald and Melania Trump will tour flood-ravaged parts of Texas today. The visit by the U.S. President and First Lady comes as Texas officials face mounting questions about the response to the crisis. The flash flood killed more than 120 people. 170 others are still missing. Steve Fetterman has more from Kerrville, Texas.
It was 1 week ago that the life of this small town and the surrounding areas changed forever. Today, Donald Trump will fly here to see the damage firsthand and meet with some of those impacted. It comes as more and more questions are being asked about whether faster actions might have prevented or reduced the scope of the disaster. This is audio from the early hours of July 4th. A firefighter asking a dispatcher if an alert, what he calls a code red, can be issued to the nearby town of Hunt.
Is there any way we can send a code red out to our Hunt residents asking them to find higher ground or stay home?
10-4 standby. We have to get that approved with our supervisor.
It took more than an hour before an alert was finally sent. As all this goes on, the arduous search for bodies continues. At this point, no one expects to find anyone alive. Captain Eric Craycraft is one of hundreds of first responders searching through endless piles of debris along the Guadalupe River.
It's just getting through these brush piles. I mean, I've been in some piles that are the size of school buses. They're big, they're massive, and they're everywhere.
Donald Trump, accompanied by his wife Melania, is set to arrive here just before noon. The president will be here for around 3 hours. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Kerrville, Texas.
Back here at home, New Democrats are on a path to rebuild their party after its worst ever election loss, and the search for a new NDP leader begins as early as Labor Day. The CBC's David Thurton has a preview of who may be interested in running.
I am definitely seriously considering, now that we know that there's enough time, to have a great, exciting family contest.
Avi Lewis comes from a political pedigree. His dad, Stephen Lewis, once the leader of the Ontario NDP. David Lewis, one of the founders of the modern NDP, was his grandfather. Like them, Avi wants to do his part to rebuild Canada's New Democrats.
There's been a lot of upset and internal angst, and some of it is spilled out publicly since the election, which is inevitable but unfortunate. And this, I think, is a real turning point where we can start coming together.
Aside from Lewis, a sitting NDP MP, Heather McPherson, might also run.
Let's be honest, the last election was a wake-up call.
McPherson, in a recent social media video.
The NDP played it safe. We stayed on the sidelines while people were asking us for solutions. And as a result, we lost trust.
The complete list of leadership rules has not been finalized, but the party confirms what sources have told CBC News. It will run from September to March with an entrance fee of $100,000.
It would definitely limit the field in terms of who could run.
Libby Davies, a longtime BC NDP MP, lamenting the high financial bar.
Because they would obviously have to have that ability to raise that kind of money in a fairly short period of time.
The hefty fee might repel some, but it could propel the National Party back into better financial shape after a tough election. David Thornton, CBC News, Ottawa.
A group of black men in the Halifax area is determined to tackle a growing crisis. Intimate partner violence has been declared an epidemic in the province, with high rates in black communities. The CBC's Elizabeth Chu was invited to join them for an open discussion about prevention in a place where they feel comfortable.
About 15 men are gathered for haircuts at a barbershop near Halifax. Before a conversation starts about stopping intimate partner violence in the Black and African Nova Scotian community. Barber Derek States offered up his space.
I feel like it's a great place for them to share their thoughts and how they feel. You look to go to a therapist, I could be your therapist.
Trained therapist, social worker Mario Roll organized the program.
We talk about how to do better, to work on your behavior, your attitudes, your emotions, to help foster a positive, healthy community.
Participants are opening up about how stress, beefs on social media, and the reality of their lives as black men can build up.
Your partner asks you a question, you're still loaded with that emotion from work, you just lash out on her.
For what you know now, what would you do?
It all starts with understanding that you cannot control what happens to you. You can only control yourself.
With tips on how to stay calm and support each other, the program wraps up.
Honestly, it's good every time I come here. It's always around something that's for the betterment of us.
I know I feel good about myself every time I leave this place, so.
The hope is to create lasting bonds among men to help break the cycle of domestic violence. Elizabeth Chu, CBC News, Lakeside, Nova Scotia.
And recapping our top story, U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening another 35% tariff on Canadian goods. That is in addition to the existing industry-specific tariffs, such as the one on steel and aluminum. Trump says the tariffs will come into effect on August 1st. In a post online, Prime Minister Mark Carney says he's treating this as an extension of the July 21st deadline to get a Canada-U.S. trade deal. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Magandang umaga, good morning, Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence on a very smoky Friday morning. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. As wildfires continue to devastate parts of our province, thousands of Manitobans are once again displaced from their communities and in need of temporary new homes. But how prepared is Winnipeg to take in another round of evacuees? We're going to hear from Manitoba Kiiwetinoong Okanagan about why it says the province needs to do better. And as you've been hearing on your CBC Winnipeg News, the financial health of the Winnipeg Folk Fest is doing well. Bartley Kivas will unpack that and talk more about that. Coming up next year on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 100.9 FM in Thompson, 97.9 FM in Brandon, and of course on your CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Stay tuned. Eleven minutes after 8 o'clock, and Heather Wells joining us from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Canada's energy regulator has approved liquefied natural gas exports through Hudson Bay, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen anytime soon. Premier Rob Canoe said his government has not signed on to the idea. He adds there is still homework to be done. We'll hear more from him. And 60 young kids get to be on the same courts as world-class tennis players at the Winnipeg National Bank Challenger this week. But it's not a job they can do sitting down. We're going to hear about their job as ball kids coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Leif Larson is our studio director today. Abby Adiemi is on the controls, and following the commute and the weather and the smoke, all those things. Good morning.
The main story today, my friend, is smoke. It's stretching from the south, and we're tracking it all the way up north, except for Churchill this morning, where we have cloudy conditions. You look outside the studio, if you're in the city or the downtown area, you try to look up, you definitely see the sun just making that little orange ball out there. That tells how thick the smoke is in the city this morning. So you need to take care. It's going to be impacting people with breathing problems. And if you are in the regions where the smoke is really down to the road levels, it might be impacting your visibility also. So take it easy out there. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 20. We're seeing 20 degrees in most of the regions at this time. Brandon and Dauphin still seeing light rains, temperatures hovering between 15 and 17 this morning. While up north, we're seeing 16 degrees in the Par, 15 in Thompson, and 11 in Churchill with mostly cloudy conditions. Most of the regions warming up close to 26 degrees today. In traffic, you see anything, give us a call, 788-3093.
13 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. And the 50th Winnipeg Folk Festival is on. Thousands of people making their annual migration to Birds Hill Park for one of Canada's oldest music festivals. And after a couple of difficult post-pandemic seasons, the festival is thriving again, even as other Canadian music festivals scaled back or closed their doors. As you've been hearing, the CBC's Bartley Kivas has been talking about the challenges that the festivals have been facing and how Folk Fest seems to be overcoming them. Bartley Kivas in studio. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Faith.
Okay, tell us, talk about those challenges that Canadian music festivals have been dealing with.
Okay, there's a lot. Obviously, the pandemic, they shut down for a few years. Then people came back, but they didn't come back in the same numbers. And there has been this U.S. exchange rate, which is punishing, especially if you're paying your artists in U.S. dollars. That's really hard. Plus, artists' salaries, they are getting a lot higher. And there's competition from other events, particularly U.S. festivals that pay in, wait for it, U.S. dollars. Then there's inflation. That has hurt people's purchasing power in the last few years. The economy is not great generally, and a lot of people just can't afford to go. So, you know, some festivals in Canada have been less ambitious in how they book, and others have actually gone under.
Talk about some of those festivals that haven't made it or didn't make it.
Regina Folk Festival, gone after 55 years. Vancouver Island Music Fest at Courtenay, BC in the Comox Valley, done after 30 years. Montreal's Sur le Canal is for May after 17 années. I buy French, forgive me. But Winnipeg Folk Festival is doing relatively well, pretty well, very well. it was tough coming out of the pandemic. They actually posted a rare loss of just under 50 grand in 2023, and now at least 13,000 paying fans a day. The festival says as many as 15, but they're not just coming for the music. Gary Conway has been coming to every folk festival since 2006, and my colleague Chuck Tinte asked him why last night.
We like the energy and the spirit of the place, the vibe. Yeah, it's just so open and comfortable, and it lets people be who they want to be for at least a brief period of the year.
Now, the festival spent decades impressing upon its audience that the music is just part of the draw, and that sounds trite, even anathema to like a serious music fan. But it's not just marketing. There are people who just do like being there. They bring their kids, and so on and so on. Valerie Shantz is a second-year executive director at the Winnipeg Folk Fest.
Music is changing, demographics are changing. For us, we are a multi-generational festival, so we have folks who come from the time that they are babies up until they are great-grandparents. So we have a lot of kind of renewal built into our audience, which we really benefit from.
Bart, this is a music festival, of course. Doesn't it matter who they book to perform?
Well, it does, but given all the financial pressures that I mentioned earlier, Folkfest doesn't try to land the biggest names. It just can't afford to take these huge swings. Its audience trusts it, most of the audience trusts it, to bring them some sort of familiar names and new artists they can discover. Here's Valerie Shantz again.
That's our primary function, is as a discovery festival, to turn people on to things that they don't know that they would necessarily want to hear, to watch musicians play with each other, and just foster that spirit of discovery and community, which is a big part of the experience here. I mean, music is a huge part of the festival. There's no doubt about it. That's why we're founded. But there's a reason our motto is people in music, because so much of what happens in this environment has to do with building community, being together, doing, more than just listening to the music.
Now, the Folk Festival can get away with this because it doesn't just book folk music. It's been a long time since this was a pure folk festival. It books folk, but pop music, rock music, other genres too.
What about other big outdoor festivals in the province? What's your sense of how they're doing?
Well, the second biggest is Dauphin's Country Fest. It used to be the biggest. It's no longer, but it's still successful. It's getting squeezed right now because it largely sticks to country, and country artists are among the biggest names in music right now, making the biggest paydays, and their fees are up 2 or 3 times what they used to be. The biggest acts, the kinds that used to help Country Fest get 12,000 paying fans or more, they cost millions to book. And big concert promoters can make those swings. But a little non-for-profit organization like Dauphin's Country Fest in an out-of-the-way corner of a place called Manitoba, you can't do that. Dwayne McMaster is the president of Dauphin's Country Fest.
One organization I know of that is based out of the U.S. They do have a couple of festivals in Canada too, and they are able to get a better rate on the artists because they have 7 festivals. So they can approach an artist and say, "We'll book you for all 7 festivals, but we want you to give us a 10%, 20% discount on your going rate." So that's obviously a benefit to them. The other thing is, if they're a larger corporate group, they can absorb losses at one festival and make it up at another festival. It says, something like Dauphin's Country Fest, where we're a standalone. If we don't make money, that's we don't have anybody to back us up and pull us out of the. We don't have another division that's going to pull us out of the fire type thing. So we sort of make a break on our own.
So it's not the same leverage as he mentioned, right?
Daily paid attendance at Country Fest is more modest than it used to be, about 6,000 paying fans a day.
So that's the attendance. What is the bottom line financially, would you say?
Well, Country Fest is holding its own, but the goal is to generate even more revenue for the city of Dauphin. I mean, profits in the past have paid for a multiplex, movie theater, a skate park, rec center improvements, walking trails. The annual budget of that festival, about $4 million. Government covers about 5% of that. Folkfest is a nearly $7 million budget. Grants and donations cover about 11%, and both festivals rely on an army of volunteers, about 1,000 of them at Country Fest, 2,500 at Folkfest, and this just wouldn't work without that volunteer labor. But one other thing, Dauphin's Country Fest actually, for garbage collection, pays community groups to do it for them, and that way they support these volunteer organizations in another way.
It's their version of bringing back or giving back to the community.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting model.
Bart, thank you.
You're more than welcome.
The CBC's Bartley Kivas, reporter with CBC Manitoba. You can read his analysis piece on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. I'm calling it an analysis piece, but it's a story, of course. Or you can tune into your CBC Winnipeg News at the bottom of the hour here. You're listening to us in Dauphin 105.3 FM and at Birds Hill Park at 89.3 FM.
As wildfires impact our province, keep up to date with CBC. For the latest information, listen to CBC Radio 1. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba or the CBC News app. For people who have a limited data plan or are running into spotty mobile service on the road, visit cbc.ca/lite. That's cbc.ca/LITE.
Coming up to 21 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. And as you've been hearing, the province is under another provincial state of emergency. 2 more northern Manitoba communities being evacuated because of wildfires. More than 4,000 expected to leave Garden Hill alone, with a bulk of evacuees now on the move to Winnipeg. Here is Premier Wab Kinew speaking at a news conference yesterday.
We're pretty much maxed out at capacity there in terms of what we can access in the next few days. And that's why we're turning to congregate shelters, because we just need to be prepared to accept several thousand more people.
How is Winnipeg prepared then to take in a new wave of wildfire evacuees? During the first wave of wildfire evacuations, some Indigenous leaders were quick to call on the province to provide evacuees with more secure accommodations in hotels, but many found themselves staying in emergency shelters like the soccer complex on Leela Avenue, and organizations like MKO say it's not enough. Joining us now is MKO Grand Chief Garrison Setti. Good morning. Welcome to the welcome back to the program.
Morning. Good morning.
How do you feel when you hear that there aren't enough hotel spaces for evacuees in Winnipeg?
No, it's very concerning, because I know when you have such a large population displaced from their First Nations and coming to a new reality that they're not used to, we wanted to make sure that they're supported and that they have adequate accommodations, but there's simply not enough room in Winnipeg or Brandon to be able to do that. And it puts our people in a very critical situation.
And so when you heard, and knowing that, when you heard the province reissuing that provincial state of emergency, what came to mind for you?
No, it is essential that the second province-wide state of emergency was called, because without that, we will not be able to acquire the necessary means of evacuating our people and the supports. So I applaud the Premier for doing that. But at the same time, it's still an ordeal for our people to come from, especially isolated communities, to come to a place like Leela, to those congregate shelters. It's not an ideal place to come when you're displaced, because there's already a lot of stress and trauma to leave, and then to add more to that is simply not acceptable. So we're hoping that there's be alternative measures taken to make sure our people are looked after in a way that is gives them dignity.
I know that Garden Hill isn't part of MKO, but other communities do need help. What's your biggest concern right now?
No, we empathize with the people from Garden Hill, and we've seen some of the video footage. It looks very scary, and but we reached out to them, and we offer any kind of assistance if they want it. So I talked to the acting Grand Chief yesterday. I said, if there's anything we can do, we're here to support you. So we're all in this together, and we need to support one another during this very critical time.
What are you hearing from evacuees in Winnipeg?
There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of fear, and also being displaced and having family members scattered. It's very frightening for a lot of people, and especially for the elderly and those that have medical issues, those that have mobility issues, and it's really difficult. It's a very difficult time for those priority 1 evacuees.
During the first wave of wildfire evacuations, you called on the province to provide secure accommodations. This week, Winnipeg police reported that some evacuee sites were being targeted by drug dealers. How safe would you say people feel when they're in the city?
Actually, they're still very vulnerable, and the Winnipeg Police Service is doing their utmost. But I do feel we need more safety officers to be able to look after our people, because it's simply not enough. And then the drug crimes that are being committed and targeting our evacuees, it will continue to happen unless we provide that kind of security that is safe for all of our people.
Do you know what those safety officers or what that might look like?
Well, we have people from our First Nations that are safety officers. We would like to utilize them and be able to utilize their skills and their training to be able to protect our communities here in the city.
Is the province doing enough, do you think?
I think they're doing as much as they can, but it's just simply the resources that we need to be able to support our people here. We just need more support from Manitobans, and we need to fill a lot of gaps. There's been a lot of food donations. I applaud that, and even supplies for daily necessities. So we just want our people to live with dignity and care and the urgency they deserve here in the city of Winnipeg and or other urban areas.
Grand Chief, when we talk about support, it is a very broad term. I know you talked about food donations, for example. What other support do you think folks need right now?
Mental health, and also like the medical needs that people have. We have to help our people, because they need those essential services, those emergency services at their disposal.
MKO Grand Chief, thank you for this, and we'll talk again soon.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Take care. That is MKO Grand Chief Garrison Setti. You can read the latest on the evacuation orders and wildfires on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. And of course, you can tune in to your CBC Winnipeg News. Annie DeFranco is headlining on the main stage tonight at Winnipeg Folk Fest. Here she is with her 1990 hit. It's called Both Hands.
I am walking out in the rain, and I am listening to the low moan of the dial tone again, and I am getting nowhere with you, and I can't let it go, and I can't get through. And the old woman behind the pink curtains and the closed door on the first floor, she's listening to the air shaft to see how long a swan song can last. And both hands, now use both hands. Oh no, don't close your eyes. I am writing graffiti on your body. I am drawing the story of how hard we tried. How hard we tried. And I am watching your chest rise and fall like the tides of my life, and the rest of it all. And your bones have been my bed frame, and your flesh has been my pillow. I've been waiting for sleep to offer up the deep with both hands. Oh, with both hands. And in each other's shadow we grew less and less tall, and eventually our theories couldn't explain it all. And I'm recording our history now on the bedroom wall, and when we leave the landlord will come and paint over it all. And I'm walking out in the rain, and I am listening to the low moan of the dial tone again, and I am getting nowhere with you, and I can't let it go, and I can't get through.
That's Annie DeFranco with Both Hands. She'll be headlining on the main stage tonight at the Winnipeg Folk Festival. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's 20 degrees, a lot cooler than yesterday, a lot smokier than yesterday. We do have an air quality warning over much of southern Manitoba. Good chance of showers today, and again, a risk of a thunderstorm, a high of 23. Thousands of people in Garden Hill First Nation are being forced from their homes by wildfire. The fly-in community, about 475 kilometers northeast of Winnipeg, is under mandatory evacuation. The province says the out-of-control fire is threatening structures, including fuel tanks. 17-year-old Deshelle Fiddler, along with some of his family, got to Winnipeg yesterday.
Kind of hard, yeah, but I can see it. It's either my house is going to be still standing, or, yeah, it's going to be gone.
More than 4,000 people are expected to leave Garden Hill. Premier Rob Canoe says the military started helping fly people out of Garden Hill Wednesday night, with more flights yesterday. The head of St. Boniface Street Link says despite not getting the city's contract for homeless engagement, her organization isn't going anywhere. And in fact, Marion Willis says it's expanding. Last week, Main Street Project received an exclusive contract with the city to work with people in encampments. Last night, supporters from around the city rallied to help Street Links. It's an organization that works with the unhoused community on the east side of the Red River. Willis says it's encouraging to see support from all over Winnipeg.
This was a real show of support from community. They clearly have embraced us. They clearly have our back. And I know that I can count on them going forward. And more important, I think they know that they can count on us as well.
Willis says an anonymous donation of $2.5 million last year will help keep Street Links running. A company that wants to build a second port on Hudson Bay has federal permission to export liquefied natural gas through subarctic waters. But it won't happen anytime soon. Canada's energy regulator has authorized LNG exports through Hudson Bay by a company called Nistanan. The company still has to study the feasibility of a port near the Nelson River, find billions to build it, and meet other approvals. Premier Rob Canoe is not ready to sign on.
We're trying to do our homework and background work behind the scenes, make sure folks are comfortable with the direction forward, and then we'll move ahead with that.
An earlier effort to build a port along the Nelson River was abandoned more than 100 years ago. Canada's labour market topped expectations as it added 83,000 jobs in the month of June. Statistics Canada this morning says the unemployment rate dropped a tick to 6.9% nationally. It marks the first month of significant job gains since January and snapped a 3-month streak of unemployment rising. Manitoba's unemployment rate dipped as well, improving to 5.5%. It had been 5.9%. The Bank of Canada's next interest rate decision is July 30th. Premier Rob Canoe says he is still listening to experts after scrapping a redesigned choice for a deadly intersection experts from his own government preferred. The province confirmed this week it won't put up an R-cut intersection where 17 people were killed 2 years ago at the Trans-Canada and Highway 5 near Carberry. Canoe says the government couldn't have gone ahead with that proposal after a meaningful consultation with locals.
If we would have just pushed ahead with that in the face of very adamant opposition from the community, it would have shown that that consultation wasn't really real.
Some people in the community want an overpass, and the Premier says the idea will be considered. Rolling, throwing, retrieving, and delivering tennis balls. 60 young ball kids are on the same courts as world-class tennis players at the Winnipeg National Bank Challenger this week. They collect balls to return to the players. They also provide the players with towels or drinks. Ball kids follow the rules of the game very seriously.
Always watch if there's a ball coming or when to roll it on a first serve and second serve, and to always make sure if the player's about to serve, don't throw it yet and then just wait till he's done.
Tennis-wise, it works in like your agility and your speed, because like you always have to be watching the ball and going fast. It works on your reaction to balls, which you also need as a tennis player.
The finals of the tournament are Sunday at West St. Paul Tennis Hub. And after a few difficult post-pandemic seasons, the Winnipeg Folk Festival is thriving again. No fewer than 13,000 paying fans are expected at Birds Hill Park every day this weekend, an achievement in a summer when some outdoor music festivals in Canada are scaling back or shutting down. Winnipeg Folk Fest director Valerie Shantz credits her event's success on multi-generational appeal.
We have folks who come from the time that they are babies up until they are great-grandparents. So we have a lot of kind of renewal built into our audience, which we really benefit from.
And the Folk Fest runs until Sunday. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Abby Adiemi, last look at the forecast.
Local smoke in play today, making the skies hazy, and the air quality will be poor from the north all the way down south. Southern Manitoba warming up close to 26 degrees. Up north, we'll see temperatures get close to 22, 25. Winnipeg sits at 20 degrees at this time, warming to 23. But take care, that smoke will be felt into tomorrow.
Everywhere.
Yep.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Abby Adiemi, our associate producer today, and our technician. Sierra Sanders as well, thank you. Chidi Ikuma, Jeneba Doso, and Chloe Friesen helping put the show together for today. Our CA reporter, Jim Agapito. Our streaming producer is Brad Lillies. Nelly Gonzalez is the show producer of the Current Affairs Unit. Leif Larson is our senior producer of audio today, also our studio director. Stay tuned. Coming up on Radio Noon for the call-in portion, is 15 too young? The age of certified lifeguards in Manitoba being lowered to that. Stay tuned for that coming up here on CBC Radio 1 after your 12:30 news.
Unity in Lytton, British Columbia go up in flames, only to see wildfires return 4 years later. And then
I actually teared up and cried when they gave me the news, because this is just so huge for me and for women in rodeo.
that's rodeo champ Shelby Beaujolais-Meged recalling the moment she found out the Calgary Stampede was finally adding ladies breakaway roping to its lineup. Coming up in 30 minutes, we'll talk to her about how women are riding high in the rodeo and how their rise is breathing new life into the event. Then, could there be two Dalai Lamas soon? The current Dalai Lama says only he and senior Tibetan monks can choose his successor, but China says otherwise. Then, in an hour, we'll bring you the final episode of the CBC podcast Understood, Who Broke the Internet, looking at how big tech dominance became locked in globally and ways to reclaim the internet for the public good. But first, when the smoke clears and the ashes settle, the challenge of rebuilding a life after fire.
Taking, I guess, that from the letter from what Donald Trump sent. So pushing now from the July 21st to August 1st. But he really reiterated and focused on social media on defending workers and businesses, strengthening and supporting those businesses. As
fire threatened her town in late May, Dawn Halady did something that's familiar to an increasing number of Canadians. She evacuated, fleeing a monster of a fire. Don owns a restaurant in Flin Flon, Manitoba, and lives across the border in Creighton, Saskatchewan.
You've got 4,000 people that are leaving one community all at once, and it's just complete chaos because you don't know where you're going. There's lack of cell service to even try and find out where you're going. You're trying to connect with family, and phone calls are being dropped. You're phoning hotels that are completely booked and have no room for you to stay. You can't even pull over on the side of the road because you've got a convoy of 20 cars behind you, and then you got a whole city that is evacuating behind you.
And then yesterday, once again, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew declared a province-wide state of emergency as wildfires again force thousands out of their homes in the north of the province. If you look at the current wildfire map of Canada, there are hundreds of fires dotting the country. And for communities near those fires, people are on edge, fearing an evacuation or worse. And for those who do have to flee their homes, life is often forever changed. Last month, we spoke with Brooke Kindle. She lives in Denair Beach, Saskatchewan, close to Creighton. The Wildfire, the same fire that Don fled, destroyed more than 200 homes in Denair Beach, and it's still burning west of the village. As the flames got closer and closer in late May, Brooke and her family evacuated. At the time, she was 35 weeks pregnant with her third child. The fire destroyed her home. Brooke is joining me now from Saskatoon, where her family has been living. Brooke, good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I understand there's a new addition to your family. Congratulations. When was your daughter born?
She was born June 20th. Her name is Callie. She's doing great. She's actually a very easy baby, which is really nice.
Which is just what you need right now. Can you tell me what does life look like for you right now?
It's very, very chaotic. As we're speaking, my husband's trying to get one kid out the door to go play with friends. We're getting the other kid to go to daycare this morning so that we can focus on doing our insurance paperwork with just the baby. It's just been very challenging.
How are the older two kids managing?
Not great. My 4-year-old tells everybody everywhere we go that his house burned down. Every store, everything.
Yeah, I mean, I can hear in your voice that you're under stress. How are you doing emotionally?
Well, I'm about 10 days postpartum, so that's always fun just in terms of everything that you have to go through having a newborn. But I mean, just doing the best that I can on, I think we got 3 hours of sleep last night. I'm okay for right now.
Okay. Now, you evacuated Denair Beach. Can you take me back to when you learned you lost your home?
Yeah, we watched it. Like, we had friends and everyone was posting online videos of their cameras as they slowly shut off as the fire crept up the street towards our house. And I had a Tesla at the time, and we watched the temperature start rising, but then the temperature went down. So we thought maybe we were okay. But that actually was my boat burning next to it. And then, after all the power went out in the town, the only real connection we had was, because the firefighters were all evacuated, was my Tesla, because it still had the connection through the data. And it got up to 80 degrees, I think, before it turned off.
And it just went blank?
Yeah. That was about 5:30. And then my friends at about 7:30, their houses, multiple streets down, their security cameras were going off. It just slowly was alerting people as it traveled.
What were you thinking when you saw the Tesla app go blank?
We knew that everything burned. It was a weird feeling, almost like a sense of not relief, but okay, it's over now, we can move on. Because there had just been so many days of anxiety, wondering, are we going to lose everything? Is what's going to happen? And it was just okay, now it's done. Now we don't have to sit awake all night thinking about this and watching cameras and watching fire maps. It doesn't matter anymore. Now we can just mourn the loss and start rebuilding.
And in your family, it wasn't just your home. I mean, you lived next door to your parents in Denair Beach. How are they coping with losing their home as well?
Yeah, it actually took me a couple weeks to even realize that it was, someone said, oh yeah, and you lost your childhood home too. And I was I didn't even really think of it that way, because I've been so focused and wrapped up in, our own loss. But yeah, my parents are still staying with us. They're helping with the new baby still, and with my husband. They're up to their eyeballs dealing with insurance as well. We've had barely any answers. We don't know if we're going to be broke at the end of this or if we're going to come out okay. Like, it's so confusing. It all depends on our house appraisal. Same with them. So we're all just kind of in a waiting game. Not sure if we should be replacing lots of things or if should we try to buy everything secondhand? We just don't know how it's all going to work out in the end financially. So we're just trying to live as, cheaply as we can and try to stay comfortable and keep the kids happy. But it's been really hard for them and for us, for sure.
Mm. Now, your husband has been back to Denair Beach since the fires. Can you describe what he saw, what your town and your property looks like now?
Oh, it's not like a normal fire where you can sift through the rubble and find really anything. It's just absolutely decimated. Everything, it burned so hot that all the metal and everything is just melted. Like, my car, on the sides of the car, is just melted piles of aluminum. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
And I was told my husband last night, I was like, well, maybe we could look through for my Christmas decorations. Like, I know some people have found a couple ornaments.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, Brooke, there's the fridge and stove from upstairs on top of your Christmas, like on top of our storage area.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it's about 2 feet deep of just ash and rubble and poison. And it's just, everything is just like a fine silt with some pieces of metal melted.
I mean,
even inside of our gun safe, it's just like our gun safe was fireproof, but all of our guns were completely melted.
Do you think you'll move back?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, this wildfire risk isn't just here in northern Saskatchewan. It's all across Canada. I was actually more worried when I lived outside of Saskatoon at Pike Lake because of the big winds that we had there and the grass fires that we had. Like, it's happening all across the world. There's extreme weather events. So, I mean, yes, we're going to be changing a lot about the way that we rebuild our house. And I think a lot of people in our community will as well. But at the end of the day, it's still home. It's really, really hard to leave. And I don't think that there's really a lot of places that are safer.
Brooke, if I can ask you to stick around, I'd like to bring in another guest. In the summer of 2021, a devastating fire destroyed most of the village of Lytton in BC and killed 2 people. Megan Fandrich lost her small business in the fire. She joins me this morning from Lytton, where she still lives with her 9-year-old daughter. Megan, good morning.
Good morning, Megan.
Now, last week was the 4-year anniversary of the Lytton fire. How have you been feeling this week?
This is the first year that coming into the anniversary, I thought I was going to be okay. Coming into the first anniversary, I think it was like a full month that I was really rattled. And this year I thought, like, okay, 4 years have passed. Things are pretty stable here in a completely new way in this, what I still call a burned up town. But then on June 30th itself, a fire started just across the river from my house, just that evening. And just to see the flames, like I saw it race across a farm field, and then into the trees, and saw the trees go up. Just that on the day of the anniversary, it was, to put it mildly, like really unsettling. The next day, though, the next morning, when my daughter and I got up, the fire was already basically out because there was such a concerted effort between volunteers and firefighters. There were even helicopters on it late at night. And so the fire was out immediately. And so then to have made it through another anniversary and to have made it through another fire, there's this sense of okay, we can keep going. Life does keep going.
Can you tell us a bit about what happened to you in the fire 4 years ago? Where were you when that fire first started?
Yeah, I was at my coffee shop. It was a beautiful little art cafe, and we were just closing. And a community member just ran in and said there was a fire that was really close and we had to go. And then, like most of my community, I ran from the flames. I drove out of town, kind of through the fire, and saw that my house was right on the edge of the fire, but not on fire yet. So I stopped in and grabbed my cat and my computer, and my daughter had just turned 5. I grabbed her favorite stuffed animals, and a basket of laundry. That was all I could think to pack, and drove away. And we were evacuated for a month. And in that month, I found out that my house had been saved by firefighters, but my art cafe and also the town that I grew up in and the town I was raising my daughter in, they were completely gone.
Oh, I'm so sorry. What was your life like in those first few months when you were able to move back home?
I remember, just listening to Brooke now, I was remembering that there's this feelings, I mean, of course, like this awful feeling of like shock and disbelief, but also this like propulsion to keep moving forward, right? You need to find a new sense of normal and a new balance and a new way to trust the world around you. But you're doing that while navigating trauma. For us in Lytton, Lytton's a pretty isolated community, and for those of us, like especially the Inklaka'pamux community, Indigenous communities around Lytton, and the few of us with homes within the village of Lytton boundaries, we had lost our town center, and Lytton's pretty isolated, and so we had 2 grocery stores. Now we're driving an hour or 2 hours each way to get groceries. We had things like the atmospheric river that flooded out most of the lower mainland near Vancouver, that washed out Highway 1 on both sides of Lytton, and so for a little while we were trapped. The highways were closed for 3 months. It just was it was ongoing, that it seemed like we were just living, barely surviving in this kind of hostile world in this burned up town. And I hope it's different for Brooke and for her community. But here in Lytton, I mean, everyone's heard that we've been like the poster child for how not to do a recovery. So for the first 2 years after the fire, my coffee shop was still the bricks and the rubble and the basement full of ashes that it was the day after the fire. But we couldn't go in and clean it up. It had to be negotiated between the province and the insurance companies and the village. But yeah, just with my business, I found out I didn't have enough to rebuild, and I still hung on to the piece of land, hoping that I might be able to do something with it. And just this past winter, I was able to let go of the idea and to sell the land to one of the local Indigenous governments, so that they'll have a piece of property in town that they hope to develop. Yeah, and I feel good about that, about them having it.
Megan, what about your own personal recovery? I mean, how have you been working through the emotional fallout of the fire?
I mean, for that first year, even though I had a really good therapist and was trying to work through it, I think as you're going through the trauma, it's really just a matter of survival. As I started to come out, so a year and a bit after the fire, I started writing. I thought I would just write out a note for a friend, but it came out as a memory of the fire, and then another and another and another, until I had a big stack of poems that turned into a book that was accepted by a publisher. And that's been so key in my healing. It's really just my emotional journey of the first year after the fire. But then to get them out was healing, but then also to be able to just to share it, right? To take that book on book tour and to share it with audiences, and then to have different speaking engagements with it, and all the opportunities I've been given to share my story, my daughter's story, have been healing, because the trauma is so isolating while you're experiencing it. I know right now with Brooke, so many people in the community have lost their homes, and yet you're on your own navigating the insurance paperwork and trying to keep things normal for your kids. And it's so personal and isolating. But then when we're able to share it, we understand each other, right? There's this universal experience in trauma.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned your daughter. How is she doing? She was, 5 at the time of the fire?
She had just turned 5, yeah. And so now she's just had her 9th birthday. She's mostly doing well. Almost half of her life now has been in a burned up town. She wasn't home when the fire hit. She was staying with her other grandmother because of the heat dome that was affecting Lytton when it was almost 50 degrees.
Right.
And because of that, she still has a lot of separation anxiety. So there's still a lot of nights where she can't, she needs me to help her fall asleep. And if I leave the bed in the night, she'll wake up. She'll know I'm not there. And during the day, she needs to be near me. She misses a lot of school still. So it does still affect her, even though I've had play therapy for her, and we talk really openly about things, and I'm supporting her in every way that I can. But of course, the trauma doesn't end when the fire goes out.
No, of course not. Brooke, I'd like to bring you back into this conversation. I mean, what's going through your mind listening to Megan talk about life since the fire?
Oh, well, I'm really, really hoping that it's not going to take that long for us to rebuild. Yeah, I mean, people in the community keep saying I wish we could reach out to people that have gone through the fires in Fort Mac, gone through the fires in Jasper, and just kind of get a sense of what tips and tricks that they have for us. I know that my municipal government has, but even just on a more personal basis, trying to understand, what this process looks like and how we can make it easier for our children, or easier, to navigate the insurance stuff it's good to hear, but it is very disheartening.
You're both part of this kind of terrible club that no one wants to be a part of. Megan, what advice do you have for Brooke as she navigates all of these different things after the fire?
I think like one thing, Brooke, like I hope that it won't take so long for you either. Like Lytton, I really hope is a special case. But I think in a way to trust the process, and so even like to trust the different like emotions as they come up, right? Like anger is really important to hold on to, like to help you process, and grief when you're ready to process the grief, and like all of those different things. Just to trust that as it happens. And then also things like insurance paperwork. Like I put a lot of pressure on myself to get through it quickly, and then it seemed like it was always like being stalled by the insurance company, but just to maybe not to put too much pressure on yourself to have everything go back to normal right away.
Mm-hmm. Brooke, is there anything that you've learned from your experiences with these wildfires and afterwards?
I think the most important thing that I've learned is that everything that's important to you, make sure that you know where it is in your house and ideally keep it all together. We've got some things out because my husband stayed to fight the fire, but he only had like 25 minutes before he had to leave to finish packing, because I never packed anything like that. I barely even packed clothes for myself because I thought I was just going to the city for a weekend with the kids. And I am a pretty, logical person. I don't get stressed out. I'm pretty calm. But even for me, it was very challenging. Like I left without my wedding rings. My husband grabbed them, but he was like, what the heck? I'm like, well, I'm pregnant. I can't even fit them. I haven't worn them for 4 months. Why would I pack my wedding rings?
Yeah.
I don't want to lose them. But just, my wedding dress burned. Like so many things that are important. And it's like every day you're remembering, oh, I lost that. Oh, I lost that. And I mean, even like we cut down all the trees in our yard, pretty much. We called our property Fern Gully because even though I'm an environmentalist, we cut down everything. We did as much home hardening as we could. Like we were right next to the fire base. The fire base burned. Sometimes you can't really be prepared, but you can be prepared in the ways that you can
50
by
years,
having a
one
list
park,
and knowing what
millions
is
of
irreplaceable
memories.
for you, because a lot of things are just stuff, but some things are so much more than that, and it's really hard to cope with those losses.
Well, I'm so sorry for both of you for your losses, and thank you so much, Megan and Brooke,
no big plans,
for
just music,
sharing
tents,
your advice
and
everything that you've been through.
Thanks, Megan. Thank you.
Brooke Kendall lost her family home in Denair Beach, Saskatchewan to wildfire. We reached her in Saskatoon. Megan Fandrich is a lifelong resident of Lytton, BC. She's also the author of Burning Sage, Poems from the Lytton Fire. Here's Megan reading her poem, Two, from that book.
The second time I visited my ruins was in the spring.
Since then,
9 months
he's
after
been
the fire.
capturing the spirit of
The
Folk
dangerous
Fest
walls
year
still
after
standing.
year.
The loose bricks, more settled.
There's no
the ash
issues out there.
and debris, the same.
From the performers
A friend
on
climbed
stage
into the basement,
to the artisans
pit of
behind
ashes,
the scenes,
with a hand
and
rake,
volunteers he calls
sifted for
family.
hours,
For Tinker,
uncovering relics
it's a
of my
yearly
past.
appointment he doesn't miss.
Broken sculpture, fractured china, rusted jewelry embedded in pieces of shattered glass. I sat at the
Memories
top,
he not just holds
watched
in his
what she
heart,
pulled out,
but captures
feeling
with his
nothing except a
camera
dull
to
curiosity.
never forget.
How a burned doorknob looks like a vase,
She was
or knitting
standing with her
needles
band
crumble with
backstage,
touch,
and she just sort
or
of
only the
flipped
ugliest
high,
dishes survive.
and just had a great look
Feeling
on her
dull
face.
curiosity,
So that was back in
but
the
no
days
attachment
when,
to this excavation of
the
life.
musicians, all the performers,
She brought
and
up jars,
the stage crew,
herb-infused
volunteers, or all the
salts,
volunteers would hang out
products I
backstage,
made in the
having
kitchen
meals
a few days
together and
before the
everything
fire.
else.
The glass
In the
is
beginning,
still
the
intact,
festival needed less than
just
50 volunteers.
She set them gently
Now it takes more than
on the sidewalk
2,000 to
beside
keep
me.
the festival going
And
each
one
year. It's
by
them
one,
who make everything happen.
I smashed them.
It's magic. It's just
The
pure
CBC
magic.
News
Candace
is next.
Masters
Then-
started volunteering
This is just
after her
a
sister
huge,
dragged
huge
her out.
step in
50
the right direction for
festivals
breakaway
later,
roping
she's
and
still here.
for women in rodeo.
don't
I'm super
understand
excited.
that
I'm
in
super
those
excited
early
for all
years
the
of the
little girls
festival,
that are going to be able
there
to
was no
watch and dream about
communication.
being there
There
one
was no
day.
cell phones. There wasn't
Shelby
even a
Beaujolais
hardline
Medjed
phone out
was
at the
one
site.
of those little
Everything
girls
was
who
done
grew up watching
by
the
a
Calgary
note.
Stampede and
The
dreaming about
festival
being
now
there.
draws tens
Now
of
that
thousands
dream
of
has
people
become a reality.
every year.
She'll tell
and
us
the
about how
lineup
it
has
feels to make
expanded
history competing
beyond
in
folk
ladies
music.
breakaway roping. That's coming up in 6 minutes. I'm Megan
This is
Williams, and you're
something that
listening
has
to The
put
Current. Stay with
Winnipeg on
us.
the map, the international map. We offer everything, something for everyone. because you'll be
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM
and
in
how
Winnipeg.
your mind just expands. It's incredible.
What started
Today
at this
on
park
Commotion.
as a small
For a little
summer
while,
event
Drake was
is now
quiet,
a
like
major
a little
festival.
too quiet.
Still
But now
powered
he's
by
back.
volunteers,
We're learning a little more
still
about his next
rooted
album,
in
Iceman.
community.
He drove around
Chuck,
Toronto in an
CBC
ice truck
News,
and
Bird
live
Hill
streamed it.
Provincial Park.
He also dropped some new music. You'll hear how that live stream stunt landed.
50 years, one park, millions of memories.
This morning at 11:30 in Newfoundland, and
It started
on
as a
CBC
one-time
Listen,
gig
or
in
wherever you get your
1974
podcasts.
here at Birds Hill Provincial Park.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in an hour,
42
it's
acts,
Q.
4
The author Emma
stages,
Donoghue
no
grew
big
up in
plans,
Ireland without much
just
affection
music,
for her own
tense,
country's traditional
and a
music.
spirit
But when she
that
left
stuck.
Ireland, whenever she heard it, she almost broke down. That music is now the score of her own new musical about immigration.
At the front lines,
Emma Donoghue
volunteer
will be here to tell you all
photographer
about it.
Bob Tinker.
I went with a friend who was kind of interested in going.
This
and,
is CBC
I think I had a
News.
broken leg at the time,
Good
and I was
morning.
stumping
I'm
around
Heather
having a
Wells
great
in
time,
Winnipeg. At
taking
9
pictures,
o'clock,
and
we've
he
got
was
some
too.
smoke covering the city. An air quality
just
warning
decided
in
to keep
effect. A
going.
much cooler day
Since
with a
then,
chance of
has
showers.
been
A high of
capturing the
23
spirit
right
of
now in
Folkfest
Winnipeg. We're at
year
20.
after year.
A mass evacuation is underway in Garden Hill and Nissanu Nation. An out-of-control wildfire threatens the
From the
fly-in
performers
community
on
about
stage to the
475
artisans
kilometers
behind the
northeast of
scenes.
Winnipeg.
And
Chief Dino
volunteers
Flett
he calls
flew
family.
into Garden
For
Hill
Tinker,
last
it's
night.
a yearly appointment he doesn't miss.
I mean, I'm surprised he even landed. You can't even see anything on the
Memories he not just holds in his heart, but
Flett
captures
says,
with
as
his
of last
camera
night, no
to never
structures
forget.
had been
I
lost.
love
He
the
says his
shot
biggest
with Bonnie
concern
Raitt.
is
She
people's
was
safety.
standing with her
The
band
province says more than
backstage, and she
4,000
just sort
people
of
will have to
flipped
leave
the
Garden
high,
Hill
you know,
because of the
and,
fire.
just had a
Military
great
flights
look on her
have been
face.
used to help
So
get
that was
people out of the community. St. Boniface StreetLink says it plans to expand, even though it was shut out of a City of Winnipeg contract to work with people living in encampments. Last week, Main Street Project was awarded the contract to move people out of encampments. Last night, supporters from around the city attended a rally supporting StreetLinks. StreetLink's head, Marion Willis, says they rely on donations to stay afloat, and last year received $2.5 million from an anonymous donor with a note.
This money is to make sure you stay in the game. Your organization is the only organization that's making any sense to me in this. And so we've started receiving some of that.